All right, welcome to budget session workshop number 2. Start with the police department. Welcome.
So thank you, President. Appreciate the commission's support, continued support here at the police department. And I will say that we currently operate as an accredited police department, one of 159 in the state of Pennsylvania. We're very proud of that. We continue to focus our efforts into a number of things. Recruitment and retention continues to be a priority for us to continually bring in quality candidates to our police department. And a lot of the focus is really on that people positive culture by design to encourage new ideas and innovation through technology and other means. So with that, I'll work through our budget process and what we're proposing. And again, appreciate the commission's continued support here. But with that, total.
For anybody following along, starting with budget binder page, it's 151. 151. Right, thank you.
No,
We have a large television audience. We have to make sure they're staying up with us.
no problem. With that, so the total proposed number, as you see in the 2024 budget, is going to be approximately a reduction by 2.4%, which is a $276,000 number. Biggest reason for that is our department's getting younger. We're having a lot of younger officers come in, payroll decreasing for that reason until they increase in their steps of progression, as well as a number of pension contributions that reduced, as well as a number of fringe benefits contribute to that number as well as our continued effort toward fiscal responsibility. And we continue to try and work that number down every chance we get. With that, as we continue through our budget process here through police administration, we currently operate at a service level 3, which includes myself, the 2 deputy chiefs you see here with me, and our police admin, full-time admin.
One admin?
Yes, he continues to support everything we do. She handles all of our acts, which is our MPO ETC requirement. She handles everything when it comes to certifying officers. So she's a big part of what we do in terms of onboarding and continually making sure everybody's certified. So that's a big part of her responsibilities, as well as sort of managing the everyday, day-to-day policing admin functions that exist. So it tends to get a little bit busy.
Yeah, I was surprised you had one. That's why I asked. Only one? Okay.
Yeah,
For that function.
For that piece.
For that-
There's other admins in the
Right,
department.
Correct. So with that, so that's a service level 3. We continue to operate at that level, and we feel that that's an adequate level to function at from a police admin function. We feel like we are able to serve the officers' needs and get them everything they need with the 2 deputy chiefs and myself, and being able to address any community needs as well. And we've been very successful at that. We continue over here to field services.
Can we talk about number 4 before we go to field services, the
Sure.
mental health professional?
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And just, you could just tell us what that would be or anything you want to say.
Yeah, so we've explored a number of options, and what I'll tell you is the mental health professional, right now in law enforcement, there's a number of trends going on, how to fill that gap. And so after you get through sort of what it is that you're looking for and what we're able to do, there is a gap in coverage when it comes to law enforcement's ability to address consumers of mental health. There's a known gap, it's a recognized gap. We all agree it is a gap in coverage. It's something that we are looking to solve and looking to solve rather quickly. I will tell you that the models that are out there, some work for certain types of communities. The model that we feel would fit best for Mount Lebanon would be a mental health care coordinator.
Okay.
And what that care coordinator would be is a person that would be able to do follow-ups. And so what it is there's warm handoffs and then there's follow-up. So when an officer goes and deals with the consumer mental health services, the important part for that next level of care is that coordination of services to provide to them. That man or woman or that resident needs to have that care coordination, and law enforcement is not positioned to provide that for a couple of reasons. One, primarily is HIPAA restriction, because a lot of those conversations are health related and we aren't positioned to do that. nor would a individual who's a consumer mental health services feel comfortable having those conversations with a police officer necessarily. So what we feel is if we have that individual in place, they can coordinate care, whether it's elderly services for people with late stage dementia or any of those types of calls that we continually spend time on, or whether it is more acute type near crisis level of mental health response. So the idea is if we can lower that temperature of those individuals and really get them the care they need to prevent crisis, it's not necessarily a response to crisis. We know how to do that. We deal with that all the time. We're comfortable in that role. What we really are looking for is to increase our ability to prevent people from going into crisis by giving them the care that they need and providing them with those resources. So that individual would essentially work every day to garner more resources, build relationship with outreach team, family services, and other really local services that we can provide, as well as county and state services that can be provided. And that's something right now that as a police department, we recognize that we have to be better at. However, there is that line in the sand that exists, unfortunately, when it comes to some of these types of situations. So we do agree it's a gap in coverage, and we do agree that we want to solve that gap. It's going to take really us doing something and really committing some type of funding to it and seeing if it works from a pilot perspective or from a regional perspective. We've talked to regional partners, we've talked to local police chiefs, we've talked to Medical Rescue Team South. Really anyone who's a player in this or a stakeholder in this game, we have reached out to. So I will tell you that there's a lot of people interested in solving this, and we are too. And the manager and I have had a number of conversations over the last number of months of how best to solve this for Mount Lebanon. And I think that, you know, what we would ask for is to pilot this. And even if we would have started in June, by the time we get a standard operating procedure and a policy drafted, that at least we could start something. The problems continue to happen. It's the same script every time we have somebody go into crisis. We had the incident on Gilkison Road on July of 21, and that was a foreseen crisis. There was nothing unforeseen about that. And these crises that are foreseen continue to happen with our ability to interject very limited. So we don't want to have the same story repeated and these consumers not get the help they need. And really, it happens all over the region. And these are things that are going on that we really want to get in front of, and we really do want to solve in a sensible way. So the only way to do that is to really bring somebody in who's associated with Mount Lebanon, but not necessarily a police officer. And then that would,
And I know you've been working with outreach on this, and
Yeah.
at one point outreach was talking about a more regional, or at least multi-community focus,
yes,
rather than just the Mount Lebanon person to say, and there was also a question of, is there funding available to say, okay, this person is with us with, you know, pick a couple neighboring communities. It spreads the cost and also is spreading the workload. So, and maybe there was some funding available, I don't know. This is a departure from previous years where we talked about a cost sharing as opposed to one person that we hire, so.
To that point.
Yeah.
LEAD is funded. LEAD is the model you just described. Why would I spend $140,000 internally when LEAD is resourced?
so LEAD, we've been in meetings with LEAD continually. Kate Vanderwide and I talk often. I am involved, they invited us to their operational meeting, to their pilot that they have with McKees Rock, Monroeville, and Housing Authority currently. I was in their last operational meeting. The next operational meeting is for January. The difference in LEAD's model is a alternative response model as opposed to a co-response care coordinator model.
I see.
So the difference is sending people out there instead of where there's a different level of service. So the difference with LEAD, as I've learned and as I've really dug into, is they would have providers who aren't familiar with Mount Lebanon, don't know the level of service that's expected from our residents, and they aren't tied into the community. They are part of a bigger conglomerate. And the issue that we've discovered is this resource will be utilized more than we recognize. What everybody knows is there's such a need for it. Once we get it, other people will want to use it. So to that point, the higher call communities the LEAD has, again, using the McKees Rock Monroeville example, they're going to be in McKees Rock more as a matter of speaking, because the call volume is higher. So the level of care that we would get from that individual, level of attention we would get from that project would be very minimal, because our call volume wouldn't be so high. And so the difference is of the models, there's alternative response, a co-response, and a care coordination. Alternative response is not something that we feel is something that we are positioned for currently. And the reason for that is the expected level of service that our residents have come to know. And what we don't want to do is sacrifice that level of service. And what we want to do is continue to provide what they expect, which is somebody to come when they call. And we don't want to sacrifice that because they're in another community and we're part of a cohort and they're not something that we're focusing on our folks. And that's the reason why if I were to look at LEAD, I'd say, I don't think LEAD's ready yet. They have their next operational meeting in January. I received an invitation to that. And I can tell you that they just aren't operational yet. They're working through a lot of limitations, a lot of really organizational challenges. And that's something that they just aren't positioned to work here yet. But they are eventually potentially a resource once they get up and running and they become sort of more refined.
They're gonna be on a path faster than I'm gonna come up with $140,000 for Mount Lebanon.
I don't know, I disagree, $140,000 looking at our $50 million budget, I mean, I think it's a conversation worth having, it's a hard year, it's a hard budget year, but
Yeah, but it's every year.
it is every year. Plus
Every year
it's
for the next
tension,
20 years.
100%, but our mental health crisis is real, it's real
Right, and
regionally.
but if we're not thinking about it regionally, we are just creating an additional tax burden here in Mount Lebanon when the resource need is actually at scale.
The resource rate is nationally, regionally, and locally.
Right, so
We
why?
can't solve all of it at the same
No,
time.
exactly, but if I'm pooling resources around mental health,
Yes,
it is far more effective. I mean, we pooled EMS.
yes.
Why? Because it's hard for one municipality to do it.
Except if we have enough residents in enough crisis right here that we could keep that person full-time busy.
I'm not voting to support it.
I totally understand, totally understand.
I
So the
will-
couple years that I was able to do neighborhood aid with Craig, that was a serious unmet need that I saw in our municipality. I was not aware how many people were both in mental health crisis and in this elderly situation with no family. And they really need support to get into an assisted living situation, but they don't have the mental faculties to do that. So I'm trying to hook them up and stuck in this with support from our state representatives and all county representatives and all the services that do exist that do exist for them. But the time necessary to walk them through them steps and help them get in those facilities that they need and get the care they need, I wasn't able to do as a volunteer.
It sounds like, I mean, I don't know anything about LEAD, but it sounds like if we do have that need, which I do believe we do, I mean, Mary Burks is a neighbor of mine, and talk about this all the time.
Right.
It sounds like if we had that need, and I think we do, I agree with you, that there would be a different level of cooperation with this organization, whether or not that necessarily meets what you have said might be the expectation of our residents. I guess it's a different story, but yeah, I mean, I know the needs there too. I totally agree. I also agree with Andrew that this kind of, because it's, I don't know how LEAD is funded. Are they funded through the county?
Federal dollars are coming down.
Yeah,
State, federal, state, they're all getting funneled into the county. County is working with Connect. Connect is coordinating. They're bringing in care
I mean, technically,
coordinators.
our tax dollars are part of the county. It would almost be like.
Yeah.
We'd be
At the
taxing
county
our
level.
residents twice to have an extra program here, so.
Which we do for outreach already,
For
we
other
do
things,
in
right.
fire, because
Yeah,
we have
sure.
a fire department, we
Yeah.
do in many other ways, because we have
Yeah.
higher
You
level
know,
services.
There is another, we have explored the possibility, we do have the capacity to employ a model similar to what we do with animal control. And when you talk about a regional model, that is something that we have a capacity to manage in terms of oversee, because we have the experience with it. But we have talked to Whitehall, Castle Shannon and Dormont about potentially having a model similar to that. Now, it would take some seed money to start that. However, the idea would be similar to how we do animal control. It would be a per call cost and a percentage of your usage cost. The one thing we've been advised strongly for those who have stood up programs is you're gonna use this, and if you have too many people in the early onset, you will never see that person because there's going to be such a need.
I see, there's a huge need and it's unmet,
Right,
so
so
it's gonna
once-
disappear.
Right, so once you have that, so our conversations have been, to what scale do we start that sort of early seed? And how do we build that to make it scalable, where we can really service our residents?
So I would prefer to follow that, Versa / animal control model where we're getting two things. One, we're getting some regional efficiencies. And two, geography works for us. Your comment about lead, where about Lebanon, you're running with Keys Rocks, as opposed to saying both animal control and Versa are in a concentrated area. So I would, the idea of saying to think about moving towards developing a program like that, I'm not convinced we should allocate the money today. I just think we should be thinking towards that type of multi close proximity of regional approach.
I would also add, I think we're also inflating, but not necessarily in a bad way, two different types of services, right?
Yeah.
Because we started this conversation with, there is a need
Sure.
to have a mental health response to what has traditionally been a police call, right? And I think we've recognized that and we've worked with outreach to do that appropriately, and I think that's worked pretty well. The other side of it is also what you're talking about, which is what we found with Neighborhood Aid, which was just this, huge need
Unmet
for
need.
unmet need of just mental health services in general, which bleeds into a lot of non-police related activities, picking up medicine, picking up groceries, family that doesn't live near here, people who can't get out of the house and have
Yes.
real issues, which is a whole separate thing that I think we need to,
With an aging population especially.
we need to figure out exactly what the need is on both of those, right? Because rolling into a police program, something that deals with just pure mental health and has nothing criminal related might be overkill. But there's those two needs there that I almost feel like we need to figure
They're
out.
different, yeah, there's
Yeah.
the on-call, like you're talking about, the emergency response, and that's
Yes.
just similar to like, we have detectives, full-time detectives on
Yeah.
staff, they're solving crimes. This
Yes.
person would be, 9 to 5, I would assume, doing outreach, preventing people
Correct.
from getting into the place where they're committing
Correct.
crimes or hurting themselves or,
Yeah.
suicide or whatever.
Right,
Yeah,
it's,
there's that real need where you go on a call and you're like, well, this is more of a mental health thing. We need to have that professional here that can do
Right.
whatever it requires, de-escalating on that level, which is different from some of the other, but I feel like, we either need to make the decision to do it or not do it, but I feel like there's some sort of program there, whether we're tapping into what Andrew's
What
talking about,
exists,
or
yeah.
making our own thing or something, but I think that's a different conversation.
It's a big conversation.
I-
Big conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
well, we've had them, and to be quite honest with you, it's been a huge focus for us. I mean, I can tell you that we think about it, daily.
Okay.
We talk to Kate and others from DHS often. We have been engaged with them from day one. They came to us 2 years ago when DHS, Department of Human Services, first really started to roll out sort of this notion that they were going to participate in LEAD and other programs that are sort of based nationally, but maybe how can we overlay that locally? And so we have had those real conversations. And so that is why, I hope that if nothing else, that we are looking at every single option.
Uh-huh.
And we are really looking to see what fits for us. And that really, I think, there's a lot of ideas out there. There's a lot of people doing things. But what we don't want to do is do the wrong thing, where we are putting ourselves in a position where it's an underutilized resource or it's something that's not set up to really service the community needs.
And this, I was gonna say, given, we're on the first bullet point of the budget of a 3-hour session, that if we could put this topic on a discussion session, obviously, someone else is gonna be president next year, not us. But I was gonna ask, can we?
Let's
put this
also
into a
flag it,
discussion?
even though it's a tight budget year, let's just
Yeah.
flag it for the end.
And just
Obviously care.
for that discussion, Keith, just to bring in the right people, like I think Mary and maybe even somebody from Lead or.
I was also gonna
Chiefs.
suggest maybe somebody from St. Clair Health.
Sure.
Yes.
We met with St. Clair Health, and that was the biggest eye opener to me. This isn't a Mount Lebanon issue, it's not a regional, it's a national issue.
It's a national issue.
That's a healthcare provider, and I will tell you honestly, and the chief and deputy chief Pupi were both in that meeting, who is struggling to figure out how to address the issue.
Yeah.
You're all aware that I signed a letter of support for St. Clair Hospital. They're submitting for a grant to construct an empath center to deal specifically with mental health issues. So again, I think that's an excellent discussion to get everybody in the room to try to find the right path forward.
Okay, great.
Fully support that. Thank you.
All right, so if we could move on from police
All right.
administration, we have.
With that, okay, no
Budget's
problem.
not to go here.
All right.
Field service.
With that, so if you look, moving on to police field services, you see we are, asking to be funded at our current level, which is a service level 4, which is, 4 police officers and 24/7 supervision of a lieutenant who we refer to as our watch commander. This model has served to be very effective for us. It gives us the best opportunity for real hands-on supervision and to give the officers what they need to serve the community. Questions on that?
Hopefully for a shorter discussion than our first.
Yes, sir.
Automated license plate reader, it's below the line. I see we have the program going now. What is this relative to what we're doing now with automated license plate?
So the ALPR would be another police unit that would be outfitted with a mobile ALPR. You'll see later on, we have the ALPR, which are fixed systems. Those are our intersection cameras, as you know them.
Right.
So that's a different ALPR than this one. What we found is we found where we're at with 3 police vehicles that we have currently. We're finding them to be effective.
Okay, so there's 3 vehicles now that have this technology.
The mobile,
Going to be 4.
what's in it before?
Oh, so we already funded 4,
That's for
and this would
24.
get us a 5th one?
This will give 5 and 6.
Okay, 2 more.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to do.
Just as a side note, can we get a report on all the ALPR stuff? 'Cause I know we
How
use
so,
it for like parking, stuff like that, specifically parking, because we talked about how it was gonna be used to assist with parking. Can we get that? sometime
You're like
in the near
stringent utilization, like how much
Exactly.
are we changing? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Well, what are the trends
We'll put that
in terms
together.
of how ALPR is?
Yeah.
Is the parking car out and about? I have not seen it in a long time. Okay.
Yeah, the electric car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, with all the, okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's out. And so we will put that together. We'll get you a report on the mobile ALPR and then the fixed. I can tell you it would be harder data to glean, but I can tell you it's been a game changer. Really, it's been a revolutionary technology.
Yeah.
Yes, what do you think is relevant from that?
Sure.
But
Okay.
definitely the parking would be good to get an update.
Okay.
Am
and we
am
can
I
do that.
hearing commission is interested in this option or no?
I
We're good for now.
now. The chief mentioned this is for 2. The note looks like it's for 1, so I'm a little confused as far as, is this?
No,
790?
that's a typo. That's for 2.
Is it scalable?
So this started prior to chief, and we've talked about it. This is to get the 6 frontline vehicles, all ALPR equipped.
Right.
And it would be done.
Oh,
So the final 2,
oh, I see.
our plan was to have, unless it's changed, I don't believe it has. The plan was that you would have 6 ALPR vehicles mobile in the cars. So we have 4 now.
Right.
These would be for the final 2 to make sure that we have that rotation ready to go.
Then I asked to fund one of the 2. Okay. Not, whatever, so it's 26,000 roughly. Thank you.
Just so the commission's aware, I did have, knowing it's a tight budget year, I did have a conversation with the chief and asked him between the additional ALPRs and another fixed camera. His preference was for the fixed camera, which you'll see in the next.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. That's helpful.
Please remind us of that again when we go back to the list.
Right here, yeah.
All right, next.
So moving on, if you see police support services, this is where we ask for that continued community-based surveillance camera. The fixed ALPR, which the location would be at Washington and McFarland. That would be the location we're asking to fund for that. And when I tell you these are game changers, currently the cameras we have are being upgraded continually. They are right now at about a 90% read rate at 85 miles an hour, which I will tell you is a significant increase in the technology. When we first started these projects, probably 8 years ago, we were looking at about a 70% success rate at about 50 miles an hour. And since that time, I can tell you they have 100-mile-an-hour cameras that are reading at about 92% read rate. So what that is a significant increase in the technology. It has to do a lot with the plates have caught up to, the states have agreed to make the plates readable. And that also plays into the technology as well. So we are really finding a ton of success with these cameras. And they really are probably the biggest innovation in law enforcement in the last 50 years.
Right.
Well,
Thank you.
Are license plates still made by people in penitentiaries?
Actually, Deputy Chief can probably answer that. I don't know.
Got that a lot. Clarify why he knows that so well.
They used to be made at SCI Pittsburgh, but that institution closed. So they still do some services, it's mostly clothing and things now. I don't think that they do that anymore.
The conversation is whether they should be paid.
that's why the J's.
Yeah.
And penitentiary.
Whatever they changed the paint makeup to, they should change back to what it was before.
Yes.
So, and with that, it also includes the support services, function also includes our 2 records clerks, who do phenomenal work every day with, expunging records, sending out reports. They continue to really keep hold, kind of be the glue to hold everything together. Everything is a central repository in the records department. We're real proud of their work, and they really do a lot of unnoticed and unrecognized task on a daily basis. So that's part of that funding level as well.
You need more fixed cameras than just one more?
Well, one more puts us at our perimeter intersections, but then all have been covered.
Okay,
Then we would be working on interior intersections.
okay.
Tell them about this year, what you were able to accomplish with.
Well, yeah, so actually Deputy Chief was able to talk with the vendor, and with the change in vendor, we were able to reduce the cost of the intersection. So we got 2 intersections for the price of 1.
Last year in
Yeah.
2023, nice.
So we were able to get, right now we have Washington and Castle Shannon Boulevard.
Uh-huh.
And then we have Cedar and Gilkison is the other intersection. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank
Cedar Gilkison's already covered,
you.
right?
That's being implemented, I believe, in the next couple of weeks. So
Yeah, when those new poles go up here shortly next week, that intersection covered.
Yeah, so we're real happy about that. And that'll be most of our, again, almost all of our exterior sort of intersections, if you will. And then we'll focus on the interior intersection, which have a lot of value as well.
Mhm.
And we'll never say no to ALPR fixed intersection cameras. We do find a lot of value.
I had a previous conversation with Chief Loth about this and would love to get an update on some of the impact of the cameras. I thought we had one at McFarland and Washington already, so I'm actually surprised to hear that we don't. So I'm definitely in favor of that. I would love to know the cost of just pulling that out separate from some of the other items, but I think this is an exec session topic for future, but I'd love to understand some of the impact of that, which I recognize, probably can't be.
Might be sensitive, yeah.
So that might be an exec session topic, just to understand some of the impact of the, like.
Well, there'd be some specific cases you can.
Correct.
Exactly.
Unravel the first part of your comment?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean by pulling out separate? Is that budgetarily or? is that-
Budgetary, yeah, just the one addition of the camera. I
That's a
wasn't,
$10,000.
That's the $10,000 one.
maybe I'm looking.
It's funded, yeah, or it's recommended to be funded.
Oh, God, okay,
So
we're
this,
good. We're
this
good.
year, okay, so this year though, just so for explanation purposes, because it's become an important expanded program over a number of years now. We pulled all what it costs to run that entire program in service level 3.
Oh.
So service level 3 is the existing program.
Got it, we've been funded, thank you.
Let me make sure, I want to make sure we
That
explain
makes
that.
more sense now, okay.
And to then, the capital cost is the 10,000 that will upfit for
Yeah.
a new system.
Okay.
Then next year rolled into service level 3 will be the ongoing maintenance cost and internet connection and those types of things.
So it's now its own separate thing.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can see it.
Yeah, that's good.
is that, 42,100, is that, like, we add one more camera? You have a sense of how much that adds to the maintenance software, and internet connections, or is that almost like the 42,000 is a fixed cost, no matter if we have 10 cameras or
No.
20 cameras, that's pretty
It's,
big.
it's based on per camera, it's per number of intersection, cameras, so on and so forth. So there's a whole litany to that. We can get you that exact number of what that costs, for the ongoing operation, but,
Okay.
it's somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 per intersection.
Oh, great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next section, please.
All right, with that, thank you. So as we move on to ISU, or Investigative Services Division, we're looking at the service level 5 to continue to be funded at our current level, which allow for a lieutenant to oversee 2 investigators, a juvenile detective, and a drug detective. We continue to find a lot of real positive results from our drug investigations where he is part of a bigger network. He has really inserted himself. We've task forced him with the HIDA group, which is the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Group. That is a group that is again, a task force of sorts, and we continue to push for that task force effort from him. Drug work is a global effort. It doesn't originate here, luckily, and we're very fortunate for that. But I will tell you, and we all know from our experience that, the crime is very fluid nowadays. And it doesn't stop at our borders, and it doesn't stop at our neighbor's borders. And so the real critical need we have is to be inserted into the global picture and the regional picture. And with that, that allows us to do that. And that's something that we find a significant value in. It really puts us in the fold of all the conversations locally, whether it's roundups, larger investigations that go on, anything that happens that may touch Mount Lebanon, but doesn't necessarily originate here. So that's the drug trend nowadays, with apps and technology. There's a lot harder to detect these criminal organizations, and it's very important that we work with our local, state, and federal partners to make sure that we can do that. Absent of that, we really are flying blind.
Is it accurate to say that funding this helps reduce drug crimes at the regional level?
100%.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, next section, please.
All right, with that, Traffic Safety Unit, or TSU, is currently asked to be funded at the service level 2, which includes a lieutenant overseeing 2 individuals in that unit. As you all know, separately, we've all had various conversations about traffic safety. It continues to be our #1 priority, with it being a walking community, from in terms of a day-to-day recognition of safety of pedestrians and safety of vehicle traffic. The traffic unit, when fully staffed, gives us the ability to really focus on those complaints and have really results that we can measure. We've also asked if you look at the increase in service level for the 2 speed signs that we've asked for.
Speed notification devices.
That's an
electronic-
expanded level, correct? Ed?
Yeah,
Correct.
Yes.
number 3, though.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So that we received one of those, the manager was able to purchase one, and what that really allows us to do is to have that data where we can know if it is a problem or if it's just a one-off. And what I mean by that is usually we'll have a neighborhood where maybe somebody just got their license, a young driver, or somebody had just come through the neighborhood and we get a complaint. So then what we can determine with these signs, is we can put them and place them in certain areas and really glean data, and they can get average speed, they can record data, we can download that, and we can really have those measurable results to say, okay, the average speed of this road is 15 miles an hour above the speed limit, or it's a speed limit, or whatever that may be. And then what we can do is also use that information as we do our 3-pronged approach. We inform the public, we educate them, and at the same time, we enforce the laws while doing that. And so what we're looking for with the speed notification is it's a real immediate response to the driver to say you're going this fast. And then it also is recording that for us to use as we target certain areas.
I've read that it's
So-
effective in slowing down vehicles.
It is
but-
effectively, I mean, if you've ever driven by one, I think everybody looks at their speed every time they see one.
I'm sold. The question
Me
is,
too.
if we got, you put another one to say, you're asking for two and say, can we add a third?
Yeah.
So.
We already have one.
We already
have one funded.
Yeah.
So one's already purchased.
No, but-
I should say one's already
How many
purchased.
did
My question, so this, like
Yeah.
this 10,360, is this for one or two?
Two.
This is
Right,
true.
so I'm asking to, is an optional, is to buy another one.
Could you use
Would
more?
that 5,000,
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, I mean, it becomes a management of the resource issue, you know, if we have three, we have to make sure we don't wanna leave them up and make them go stale either.
Right.
You
Okay,
know, so what we feel like three is an effective
Gotta
number,
move it around.
right, and then we can move them, adjust them, and they aren't just the same old, because if you leave it up for too long, it just becomes a stale
right.
sort of way to, and they don't feel like we're actually targeting them.
All right,
Driver.
I would assume we can implement these at traffic requests, right? You know, somebody comes
Yeah.
in and says, hey,
Yeah.
we believe and we know how inaccurate the human eye is. I think everyone's speeding on this block, but we can deploy these if we need to from traffic
Yes,
board situations. And then I know that when we have requests like that, it involves the police looking at safety of intersections, speed, things like that. So we can move these around if we need, right?
absolutely, and that's the idea, and the manager, we share with the manager, our traffic lieutenant shares our traffic complaint list. And we continually make sure that we update that list with not only what the complaint is, but we also do the results of what we've done after that complaint.
Right.
And so it really gives you that full, clear picture of what the situation is.
We've used these in the past. This is the sort of the second generation where there's actually data now that comes back to
I
us.
love that.
But when we get those initial
Yeah.
requests that come to the traffic board,
Yeah.
Right.
we will do this first as
Right.
an in-house step before we move to the step of saying to Gateway,
Yeah.
okay, we want you to go out there and do a traffic study.
Yeah.
Can we use these on state roads too, like Mount Lebanon Boulevard?
We can,
Can.
there's no limitation on what we can use them for. Now, if we were to do something like the manager said on a traffic study, they may have to
Yeah.
come in and do their own.
Yes, but at least we have backup.
Correct.
Because, you know, that is a trouble spot, and yet I know we had police deployed there the other day doing a speed thing. And I thought you do that too often and people will stop speeding. You need to prove that they're speeding. The minute you go away, they're like,
In addition to, I mean, the
Yeah.
traffic lieutenant who's recommending, sampled many different companies. This is a recommendation that he's, they already purchased one.
Uh-huh.
In addition, there's other capabilities like not having it displayed to you, just a data
Yes.
collection.
yeah, that would be great.
Like it
too.
doesn't, so I want to make sure we make that public, that
Yeah.
it can just be straight data collection. You would
Yeah.
never know it's there. It's just on a pole. It's collecting data
Yeah.
for whatever needs we may
Right,
need.
Yes.
That it may not be that intrusive, hey, that telling you your speed. So there's many ways to handle it so that it can be impactful or less impactful, but still collect that data.
And we use those now, and so happen where they'll put one in, I'll get a call from him. Why did they add that box to the pole? Well, that's the box that's collecting all the data. It's been very helpful.
I'd rather they didn't know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got some yes and some no. When the neighbors notice something got added to a telephone pole.
Yeah.
I can't tell them it's a new cable box.
And just so our residents know that.
Verizon sign on it.
That's right. And
Right?
for my
They're trying to
benefit,
tap in.
the residents, at this point in time, we are not issuing any traffic related citations for speeding with any of these electronic
It's
devices.
collecting data.
We're not,
Devices?
correct.
No, these are not,
Yes.
there's three ways to write a speeding ticket in Pennsylvania,
Right.
there's not one.
Right, it's not like, right, we're collecting information for our own purpose of enforcement.
That's right, we don't do mail.
Why didn't I know that?
Or get spots.
Yeah, you can't do it. Yeah, I just want
Not allowed
to.
to.
Like, we'll do it.
Public knows, everybody knows, we're not, that's not what they're for.
All right, okay, let's,
With
some
that,
sidebars going on, so.
Moving on, community outreach unit. If you look at community outreach unit, we're asking for the current level 3. Community outreach is again, a crown jewel of our department for a number of reasons. We've really, assigned a number of tasks to the community outreach unit, most notably being the accreditation management, policy and procedure management, as well as, the 600 programs that they deliver annually. Included in that, obviously, the community outreach unit oversees the SRO of the high school. Currently Corporal Ty Kegeries has done an outstanding job with holding that unit, really to that standard. I think Deputy Chiefs and I have a number of conversations, and we always really are marveled at what he can do by himself. We are one step away from giving him his second person, once we get a couple people off of field training, and we'll be able to really have that fully staffed. So with that, we again are real proud of his efforts and their efforts as well. So I can tell you that the SRO, we are pending retirement of Officer Henley in August. Yeah, it's going to be a
That's
big
gonna
hit.
hurt.
Big hit.
That's not gonna go well.
Well, so we have meetings with the superintendent and high school administration for that job replacement. Both deputies have a plan in place to make sure that is as seamless and sort of as less disruptive as possible. We're doing a lot of things for preemptively filling that position, and we'll likely name a successor in January, no later than January.
I've heard nothing but good things about the program in general from parents and people I've spoken to, either at school functions, PTAs, or outside. I know it was a big conversation when I know we had them years ago. Then there was a lapse, and then we started again, and we had conversations about, obviously the officer's an officer, but they weren't there to just slap cuffs on kids and, break up fights and stuff like that. I think it's gone very well.
Yeah, thank you. No, we agree. We couldn't agree more, and we think we definitely have the right person to kick off that program. And we'll definitely continue that at that level.
Well, we're all glad to hear you're putting so much attention in that important position. It's such a community building, community relations position,
We couldn't agree. One of the other things of note with community outreach, really this initiative that sort of fell under them as well. We recently completed our ABLE training for our entire department. ABLE is the Active Bystandership for Law Enforcement. It's a program out of Georgetown University. Many years ago, it started out in New Orleans. It sort of morphed and really was adopted by a number of folks, and one of those was Georgetown University. The program of ABLE we're sort of a front runner in the area. We're one of 4 or 6 agencies that are currently ABLE certified. We had to get community support as well as our manager and solicitor support once we became an ABLE agency. With that, we trained all of our current staff with the ABLE training as of last week, actually. And so what that allows for is really that active bystandership, the ability to insert yourself into a situation if you see something going wrong, regardless of rank, regardless of stature in the department. And it really is, all of us were there, our entire police administration was there to really reinforce that point to our rank and file that we support this and that there will be no ramification should they see something that they have not only a duty to act, but ensure that they do act.
Yeah.
So that's a very important initiative that we're really proud of. With that, moving on, any other questions, community outreach, we're all good? Okay, so school crossing protection. I spoke with Sharon Croner, our crossing guard coordinator. We are fully staffed currently.
That was my question, thank you.
Yeah, we're fully staffed currently. We have 40 positions currently staffed with subs. So that is at service level 2, which you see, that includes our 1 civilian full-time coordinator, as well as the level of guards that we currently have. A number of those posts are multiple times a day, and we have a very dedicated squad of crossing guards to really keep it going. And as we all know, the level of importance we put on crossing guards is, probably more than most communities around, if not, anywhere.
And here in sorry, go ahead.
The school district pay anything?
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just keep hearing in the community that it's hard to find guards, it's hard to retain guards, but you're saying that's not true. That's not the case right now. We're okay.
Right now, we're good,
Great.
actually. Sharon's very happy. We're very happy.
But it is
It's
true.
always.
It's always a struggle,
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I
but
think
we're doing it. The way it's working.
There's ebbs and flows.
Right
It's a
now.
moment in time.
moment in time, we're good. We'll see
Okay.
what happens in the heat of winter, but right now, we're.
Winter is when it starts.
Oh, winter is when they drop off. And is it like a money issue? What is it that would?
We've done a lot of things, we work with the manager and finance to increase the incentive of guards to refer people. We increased that almost 3-fold to $100. That sounds like something, very small, but it was very important to them. We've gotten a number of referrals for that reason. I think they, There's been some other initiatives we tried to really, help Sharon with, to get people in the door and keep people here.
It's just a challenging position.
That's
Before I
what
was
gonna
in
say,
this role,
stand and.
my wife did it for 2 years. You're out in all kind of
I know,
elements.
all the
You're
time.
dealing
Yeah.
with drivers who are
Believe me.
distracted, to say the
Yeah,
least.
yeah,
yeah.
And it's just, again, we have frequent turnover, but Chief and Sharon have done an excellent job of,
Yeah.
again, backfilling and getting people to step up, so.
I know we had no money, but I wanna flag the additional $19,000, the net 19,000 for 4 more guards and 2 subs. Do we have more service?
What is it, net 19 or is it net 37,640? I was wanting to see.
think-
It's an additional.
Net
revenue.
half of that.
It's
Net
half.
19.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make
Because
sure we're clear.
we only pay half, but
Identified posts for that position.
That was. net
So
19.
before,
Yeah, talk to me about that. Anything, is that
for the
useful?
additional 4?
Yeah. additional
Well,
four.
so the additional 4 really, we get a number of requests for location.
Right,
And there's a process that we have to evaluating
Right.
what locations would be added. So we would have to go through that process to see really what falls to the top of the list.
yeah, where the biggest holes are, where the
Right,
biggest
and,
needs
and
are.
I think that, it changes sometime from year to year when elementary school kids go to a different school. And, I think that it's sort of an evolving process for that reason. You'll have a group of young kids where it's an issue this year and then the next year it's not so much. So I think what, we're finding is, Sharon would evaluate those 4 and see what in fact rises to the top of that list along with Lieutenant Green. They would, conduct the assessment, have a study done. And then once that study is reviewed, we would then prioritize those 4 positions.
That's what I heard from residents, is they went through the process and they don't quite qualify. This area
Right.
doesn't quite qualify because there's not funding for it. So there's definitely a perceived demand for additional crossing guards, but
Yeah, and sometimes we found that we've added positions, sometimes it's just, again.
Yeah,
it's-
changes.
Yeah,
not always related to funding, quite honestly. As the chief said, police will go out and they'll do counts, they'll do an assessment. And we prioritize intersections based on those numbers. So again, if we've got an intersection that sees 2 children on a school day versus one that sees 10.
obviously, I know all
1
that.
to 10.
It's some part of it's though, you build it and they will come. People aren't letting their kids walk to school because they don't perceive that there's a safe route to do so. So it's a little bit of a give and flow, and we are walking to school to do so.
Sidewalks.
Look at it. Sidewalks would help and safe safe.
Raise those
Crosswalks.
crosswalks.
Well, you may create a different intersection based on. sidewalk.
You would,
So
right?
that's not-
Yeah.
And we'll move them around.
There's a causation to
Mhm.
what corner then becomes needing to be staffed.
Yeah, more sidewalks are
Yeah.
probably gonna need more crossing guards, right? If there's more walking.
Based on what Woodland has said in our conversations,
Yeah.
if you build that sidewalk, more kids will walk up that instead of going
Absolutely.
around, so.
Yeah.
Would that then create two blocks potentially, right?
Yeah.
Two posts.
Yeah, which is our goal, to decrease the cars on the road and increase the walking, but it's gonna take some money.
Correct.
Okay, wild animals.
all right, with that, animal control,
Let's
Our
talk about
animal-
coyotes.
right? Our animal control unit continues to be cooperative of 14 communities. It serves a significant service area. We have 5 animal control officers and a supervisor. We're currently fully staffed and have been for quite a while now, actually. We've been pretty fortunate to have some continuity there. It's a really tough position to recruit for. We have a pretty solid crew that we are very confident about the job that they do. So they continue to do training and continue to update their capabilities. Continue to really provide a high level of service for the South End. So, we want to continue to fund that at the current level. And again, as you all know, it's percentage based from an overall funding standpoint from each community. We have our cooperative meeting in February that we invite our partners to, members of the cooperative to. We'll continue to do that as well.
What's our percentage?
I'm sorry.
What's our percentage? for,
We were about
Profit.
28%,
Okay.
give or take. Us and Bethel Park are about we're neck and neck. I think Bethel might have been eclipsed us by a percentage or 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just did. I needed it.
Bethel uses it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
different communities,
Area.
you have the ability somewhat to control the level of service you provide. So
Oh,
some of the
yeah.
communities in
Okay.
that cooperative will have their public works
people
employees
do.
pick up deer as opposed to calling for
I see.
animal control. You don't find that.
I've heard great positive feedback from, the rate that we pick up deer, roadkill,
It's impressive.
Yeah.
It really.
within the
doesn't-
hour.
Yeah, it doesn't say.
It's not a service provided outside of our region,
I was gonna
outside
say
of our
my drive
service area as well as.
out where Mercer Sparks.
Yeah, I
versus
drive
where-
everywhere and see dead
It's just
on
not
the
the
road
same.
and it's just not what you wanna see.
Sorry, Terry, you were saying about,
My drive down 19, you can tell exactly where Mercer starts and where it stops.
Or the
Yeah.
animal control, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
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 Animal
Yeah, we know.
Yes.
Yeah, no, right, yeah.
back.
Yeah.
With that, come to medical rescue team, I believe that's, where I-
Service level requested by.
um,
Okay.
I assume they're, where it says the next session.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, any other questions for these staff here?
Just, you said, yeah, in your beginning, you said that your goal was to recruit and retention. Is there anything you could use from us or anything you want us to know to serve that goal?
Well, we had a recruitment and retention committee, actually Deputy Chief had formed the committee about a year ago. One of the things we did ask for that fell below the line was a funding stream dedicated to recruitment and retention. Again, we know that it's new, it's not something we've ever had to focus on. We would, want at least the ability to send officers to local colleges to recruit.
I see.
We are putting together right
Active
now a
recruiting.
presentation to really, so what the model we want to use is really that coaching model and that really sort of sponsorship model where what we do, is we go out to local colleges, we form relationships with professors and also with students, maybe in their sophomore and junior year as they prepare to graduate. So we can really get them on the hook, sort of using the same model that the military uses whenever they have recruitment of high school kids going into the services. The idea is you sort of have a loyalty brand and you sort of build that, you build those relationships. And because our recruitment is so unique, because we require a 4-year degree, the issue really is that we want to get in there, we want to have a road show, we want to have our officers go out and form these relationships. And so what we've identified is a number of local colleges that we can do that with. Obviously, there's a cost to that.
Yeah,
That's outside of our current operating cost. It could be, as little as $5,000 a year, or it could be as much as $15,000 a year, depending on how much we emphasize that part of it. Our last test, we sat the least amount of individuals we've ever sat for a test. We, by civil service rules, currently interview the top 25 candidates. Last time, we only had 19 candidates to interview. That's the first time we've never had 25 candidates to interview. It has affected the list, is 9 people on our civil service list, our final list. So what we're seeing is, while our numbers are significantly more than our neighboring agencies, I will tell you from our perspective, we continue to get high quality candidates. We want to continue to make sure we don't just sit on our laurels and expect that our name and reputation is going to continue to get up there. So what we want to do is focus some time and effort and quite honestly, some money into that part of it.
where's the money go? Is that overtime for?
It would be
officers?
overtime and cost for a couple of overnights.
Oh,
Again, we've identified a couple of colleges that we recruit from in the
Yeah.
Erie area where they would have to go up, drive to Erie, stay over, and then come back the next day. It would be just a cost for the officers. They put together the program, and they're putting it together now to really refine it. And it will be something that will certify just a number of officers to do. In the unit, what do you have, 5?
Yes.
Yeah, five members in a recruitment and retention committee of varying degrees of seniority. And so this is something that a lot of times, we actually got this idea, one of our officers came from Ocean City. And this is something they do because
Oh,
they have so
nice.
many seasonal employees. So they go and take the road show to a number of colleges and universities, where we would just target a certain number that we can form relationships with and really see if we can increase our numbers.
I see that for
This is service level 5
Yeah.
under police administration. Now, if the ask here is 15,150, you said something about 5,000.
Well, again, whatever we could get, we could do with, the 15 covers, I believe we had 6 visits in there. And so if that was 6 visits at 2 officers apiece, then we could obviously pare that down to 3 visits and start with that. We would be appreciative of whatever we could do for those efforts.
Is there an expectation of outcomes from that kind of program? Or is this just purely like like you said, like a brand building exercise?
No, there is an expectation of increased applicant pool. The expectation is that we would at least get, we really want to target that 25 number to interview. We don't want to fall below that number. We feel like we're in a law enforcement in general is in a recruitment crisis. There's no doubt about that. It's noted, it's documented, it's empirical data supports it. And we can tell you that even here, while we continue to get quality applicants, the numbers are just not as high. And so the idea is we would increase those numbers to have more people not only take the test, but more people to interview.
It seems to me this can be a good pilot for the amount of money you're asking for and the direct outcome that we would see from that. Like,
Yeah.
I would ask that we, let's maybe edit and,
That-
we have
that's
to look through the rest of the budget and whatever, but
Yeah.
like, for me, it's like relatively inexpensive, positive potential direct impact that we could say, hey, for the 15 grand we spent, we had this result. It's a no-brainer. If we spend 15, 20 grand, and we're like, hey, our applicant pool increased by 1. Everybody would say, hey, maybe it's not what we thought it would be.
And one of the number 1 DEI recommendations was to increase the recruiting pool.
Yes.
And so this could
I
provide.
wasn't opposed to the level, but I knew that we were transitioning our HR manager.
Yes.
And I wanted the opportunity for the new person coming in to have a conversation with the chief to see if that person has any ideas
Oh, good.
in terms of recruitment, retention.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I
But
don't
if-
think we were remiss in anything here. I just think
It
it's
seems-
such a contained number that it seems like it'd be a real easy pilot to put
Yeah,
together.
and if we don't fund something now, then it's a whole year before
Right.
you can even start thinking about what to do.
All right, so that'll be added to
Just
the
flag
list.
it.
Is there anything else that you would,
No,
any other asks?
I think we're all, anything else?
Nothing else we should know about?
No, we appreciate the continued support. I feel like we have everything we need to do what we need to service the residents at a very high level. Continue to do that. So thank you very much.
Thank you for doing what you do. We appreciate it.
No problem at all. We'll put together that presentation on mental health and we'll get you some numbers on ALPR.
Okay, that'd be great. At some point in the future, I won't even be here necessarily for it, but I would love to see a presentation or a memo on crime trends, what you're seeing in the municipality and in the greater region.
Sure.
I was able to do the Police Citizens Academy 5 years ago, and I got some good insight into it then and asked those questions then. I'd love to see like 6 years later where.
Yeah, we definitely, the Citizens Academy is definitely, again, an opportunity that we use, and we just graduated 20 other graduates. Actually, Commissioner Flynn was a part of that program, and I think he found a lot of value out of that.
Oh,
I
I did.
know
Yeah, it was
a
great.
lot of others do, so we really, we're looking to maybe even do a sort of a reunion, maybe an alumni get together or academy graduate.
Maybe at
So
the
we could
bar.
do a picnic, right?
Oh,
Or that,
Oh, yeah. Or a pavilion, sure.
or that, right?
All righty, on that note, thank you again for your time. Appreciate it. Next would be recommended, I was gonna suggest a small, it's gonna be fun. All right, we are back in session and recreation is ready to talk. If you're following your program, it starts at Finder page 121. Dave Danella, take it away.
Good morning, Commissioners and Manager McGill. Finance Department officials, thanks for the opportunity to present the Recreation Department budget this morning. I will provide a brief overview, hit some highlights, answer any questions you may have. I'm accompanied by my management team this morning, Assistant Director Tim Ishman, Seasonal Program Manager Pat Cannon, and Golf Course Manager Colin Agster. Anything I can't answer, I'm sure they will be able to. So I'm going to jump in with just an overall 2024 department-wide budgeted expenditures remain about the same. It actually went down $2,800 compared to 2023, and revenues increased 1.9% or $64,370. The department is budgeted to have a net deficit that's normal of $205,000. This is about $65K better than the 2023 budget. The manager has recommended 2 expansion levels, 2 seasonal co-pool manager positions at the swimming center, $43,000. And the installation of security cameras to monitor main park recreation facilities at $10,000.
Including the pool?
Including the pool, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's an important one for
It
sure.
really is, yeah, you did that.
For safety, in addition to security.
The numbers that we're seeing, how different are they based on the ice rink? Like for the revenue projections you just talked about?
I'm gonna go through each one
Okay.
if you, I mean, I can hit that now or later.
No problem.
Okay, rec management, did I get there yet? Okay,
Yeah.
rec management, that's my first cost center to go through. This is the administrative and overhead area for the entire department. I'm sorry, lost my place. Expenditures decreased 6.9% or 28,130. And the main difference here is the feasibility study that was in the 2023 budget.
Okay.
Revenues go up 9.7% or 4,500. We don't really have a lot of revenues in management. This is field rental fees and light fees. Do I have anything else in there? I don't think I know. We used to have the convenience fees for online registration, but we did away with those a number of years ago during COVID.
Yeah.
That's been very well received and beneficial for us as well. Moving into seasonal programs, there are many fluctuations in wide variety of line items here, but overall, it's expenditures and revenues are budgeted to increase about 15K, so we're about dead even with 2023 there. In the golf course, we have revenues decreasing $3,480 or 0.7%, and expenditures decrease 11.6% or 62,900. And the greens mower budgeted in 2023 is the biggest reason there. If it's okay, I'd like to skip tennis and save it for the end because I think there'll be a lot of discussion there. So let's skip that one and put it at the end.
Can I interject for just a second? For the golf course side, there will be a backfill of the budgeted, everything goes according to passing the 2023 budget amendment. There'll be the backfill for the electronic piece of that for 2023. They'll be carried over to 2024. The electronic green.
Electric mower, correct, okay, we had to order it.
Well, he says there's a decrease, that's accurate as of right now, but that will be backfilled with a carryover.
Okay,
Thank you.
and then number 4, the full-time maintenance position, it looks like it's a net of maybe $18,000, right? For the golf course, it's $42,000, but it says revenue estimated at 25,000 if you increase fees.
Correct.
So then we look at really 18,000 for that position, something like that. maybe.
Correct.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about,
Yeah, we would increase greens fees
we can increase greens fees.
if we add that position. to
Is it
help offset
possible
that
to
cost.
fully cover the position by increasing fees? Or is that not recommended?
Colin, what do you think about that?
Yeah, we could. We're at the lower end of fees for golf courses in the area that are, somewhat. We could certainly raise it. We'd probably have more of a backlash from the senior leagues than anything. They're pretty,
What person in particular?
but I mean, it's perfect, certainly be feasible.
You wanted that bad?
What the
The,
second.
the maintenance position. the full-time maintenance
It could
position.
help mainly on, right now we have obviously Jason, the head superintendent, and then we have 3 to 4 guys in their 60s to 70s that work a couple of days a week each. And the big thing is helping out with mechanics. It's more than a one-person job when you're working on machinery. And for safety reasons, a lot of it too. He's, crawling under the machines and doing a lot of heavy work.
He's the lone full-time maintenance person, so this would help alleviate some of the burden on him. Anyway, it's in there.
I'm gonna put you on the
Oh,
spot,
I mean-
and say, it's a tight budget here, so it's
Of
like,
course.
can you hang tight?
Oh, yeah, we can certainly handle it.
Okay.
Me and Jason, the superintendent, have talked about that
Yeah.
many times. We could certainly
I
hang
think
that.
there are other more
Okay,
pressing
all right,
things.
okay.
But if it's pays for itself.
Right.
Then that's a different conversation. Like you needed enough to pay for itself is what I'm asking. Do you want that?
What do you want to deal with more? People complaining about
Yes.
the increased fee
Or the
or
maintenance? Tell me.
maintenance?
But I mean, we're gonna have a
hear
com-
people complaining about the increased fee, I know.
Yeah, that would probably be a larger issue, is the increase
Okay,
fee.
thank you.
But we're gonna have an issue about tennis, right? We're talking about
Right.
potentially
Right,
taking on
that's,
more there.
And then
that's,
ice
you know,
We're gonna have another potential manager or two managers at the pool.
Right.
So, you know,
Gotta
I
say no
wonder
to
whether, and I
somebody.
know we're having larger conversations about, you know, what do we do for facility rentals and stuff like that, and, you know, so does it make sense to have an extra maintenance person?
Yeah, I see it as
Regardless,
appropriately resourcing recreation so that it's running like a well-oiled machine. That's my goal. That's where I'm coming from.
If the commission would like, we could review we always do market comparisons on the fees. We could scrutinize that a little bit further and report back if we think
Okay.
another
Yeah.
increase on top of that would make any sense.
Do you want to do that before we have the last budget session? So you come to us with what you want?
I mean, I could even
Okay.
just send you a memo or something. I mean, it,
Okay, so I'll flag it as a fee that covers itself. So it's a net zero increase this next year.
Okay.
And then you tell me if that's makes sense.
all right. Sounds good. Anything else on golf? I forget where I left off, actually.
We left off at the end of golf, you're gonna skip tennis for now.
Okay,
On golf,
okay, we did. I was about to go into ice rink. Got it. I was skipping tennis.
we are still in golf. Yes,
Yes, sir.
why is the garden plot fence not in capital?
Good question.
Why is it not in capital?
Yes.
My opinion, is it really level to capital item?
What makes capital? What is it, dollar amount or what it is itself? Some fences are in capital.
It's somewhat, you know, we can decide what we want it to be. You can move it to capital if you wanted to, but generally it's been here. My recommendation moving forward, and I've talked to, is it should be $100,000 item
Yeah.
or more. If for,
For capital.
I think Terry, as long as she's been here, it's been 25,000. It shouldn't be 25,000 anymore.
Oh, I see.
In my opinion, it should be
Something
items that are
around
100,000, especially with our large of an operating budget.
Yeah.
6, 1/2 dozen the other, at that point where you slot it. Call it
So,
capital if you wanted to.
infrastructure and equipment is usually more capital than fencing per se.
Is this like an academic issue, like, yeah?
Well, I mean, to a certain extent, how do we get this funded, right? That, it's sitting in the golf course and these poor people are being neglected. I mean, we've been ignoring this fence issue for, I don't know how many years. At some point, we need to solve it. I don't care where we put it in the line item, but it's sitting in the golf course, it's always gonna get ignored.
So let's move it to capital.
But I don't care where it gets, I just, at some point, we have to solve it.
It's a
Maybe
really
this
cool
year's
area.
not the year.
Residents use it.
Yeah, these are not golfers. These are, the fact that it's on the golf grounds is secondary. We need to find a way to get it funded, maybe not this year, but sitting here, it's never going to make the cut. Because it has no revenue stream associated with it, no offsets, no,
There is a revenue stream associated with it.
very, yeah,
Right.
it's very small, yes. Right. I just need to find a way to move this forward at some point.
Could increase the cost of the revenue to cover. I was joking.
That's a
Glad you
really
caught-
expensive.
Glad you caught the joke.
Yeah. All right, that's all I have.
I mean, where would we put that? Like,
Capital,
I don't know, wrap the fence into somewhere else, make it $100,000, so when we're doing fencing for other things.
Could be a parks aspect. I mean, that's where we have the fence maintenance program now.
Right.
But ultimately, it's not the responsibility of Public Works, so it falls under
Rex
because of
budget.
where it's at, its
Because it's
location,
on-
but
It's unique. It's a seasonal program, but, you know, we do all the promoting, administration, and then golf course personnel does, you know, 90% of the maintenance. Occasionally a tree will fall in there that's too big for them and we need to call Public Works out, but it does kind of
Yeah.
bridge many different areas.
All right.
We do not, we trim the fence line, we mow the center path, we plow.
They probably.
We do not, we,
We do more at our community garden than I could find in any public municipal community garden in the country. When I researched this, we already, as a tax-paying entity, do more ongoing maintenance for a community garden. Usually it's 501c3 funded.
it's a lot of work.
So I was, yeah, it needs to be a 501c3 in my opinion. The community garden folks need to have some source of way to maintain this long term, if not keep pushing it on taxpayers. But that's a bigger discussion for sure. And here we are.
Okay, shall we
So
move
what do
on?
we decide?
Nothing.
So can we move on to
What
platform?
we decide, nothing.
I think it was-
Ice rink? Ice rink. Okay, can we move on to ice rink, please?
Okay, moving on to the ice rink, expenditures are budgeted to decrease 21,000 next year, or 1.7%. We're budgeting an increase in revenue of 62,320 or 4.2%. And the result is an improvement of 83,370 or 32.6% in the bottom line. Swim center expenditures go up 91,300 or 14.7%. That includes the expansion of the 2 co-pool manager positions, as well as some increases in equipment and contractual maintenance.
Awesome.
Can I ask, just, there's small dollar items, just to have them on the list for consideration of the pool breezeway water fountain and the programmable pool cleaner. Just, if you need them, if there's plenty left over at the end, there might be things we can fund.
Makes sense to me.
So you'll put those on the list, the interest list.
And then I think that you did some some research on the requests for the co-pool manager positions, and we're probably in the target market, right, for that price?
Wage wise?
Wage-wise, yeah.
Yeah, we think so. Yeah, we have comparative wage analysis, yes.
So please, though, if you are having a hard time finding people, that's a very important position to the commission, come back to the commission, ask for an extra couple thousand or whatever you need when it,
Okay.
kind of comes.
The regular.
We need those positions funded.
So I'm gonna just tell you this, so part of not only the base wage, but David and I discussed this, based on timing,
Yes,
there's gonna be a huge timing factor they've gotta play with.
yes.
So it's budgeted a full, I believe, 15 week, is it 15 weeks or 18 weeks?
Yeah,
Is it 15? Yeah, so part of some of that overage, underage, all that stuff, we feel there should be plenty of capacity there. Because we're also gonna have to play with timing, because we may not get a full 15 weeks out of an employee. It may be 12, but it's the right 12.
Right.
Those types of things. So there's been a lot of discussion on their end, way more, but at a budgetary level, there's absolutely been discussion of we think we have the right number
Okay, great.
to be funded for this year.
good point.
The rest of what's in service level 1, does that include the part-time as well for like lifeguards and stuff like that?
Yes.
And did we increase that? I know you keep track of what's going on legally, locally. What I kept hearing was that even though we may be in the right range, we were losing a lot of our own swimmers to other places, other pools, Upper St. Clair, Bower Hill, thank you, and even Scott and some of the country clubs and stuff.
You're saying losing our swimmers or losing our lifeguards?
Lifeguards,
Yeah, yeah.
right, swimmers that would be the obvious lifeguards, kids who are already trained, some of the kids who go through the
Aqua club, yeah.
programs, aqua club, kids like that, that are, instead of hiring kids who have none of that experience, better to have a lifeguard who's in the pool 1,000 hours rather than pulling some kid off the street who goes through a lifeguard course for 10 hours, that kind of thing.
We do have a bump budgeted for them. Andrew, do you have that handy? It's something in the neighborhood of an extra $1.
Okay.
Across the boards to eat. We have step levels based
Yeah.
on experience, so we did bump that up. Tim did extensive research comparative to other pools. I mean, I think we're in a good spot. We had probably more lifeguards this year than we ever have before, so that speaks to the ability to recruit and hire. But we also have lifeguards, and I think this is any part-time position right now. Lifeguards who want to work less hours a week than ever before.
That's what I heard when I did my very informal survey. So sorry to cut you off.
No,
Pay's
no.
okay, but they can't work the long shifts because the attention that's required for those long shifts is hard for them, but they're also aqua club swimmers. So
They're doing a
getting
lot
there
of
at
the
6
stuff.
a.m. They've already been at the pool 6, 7 hours. They can't
Yeah.
do those, whatever, 5 hours. They can't do.
Well,
those
and
long
even
shifts.
just any kid, I think, and probably my kids too, I mean, they just don't want to work as much as kids used to, and I think it's because they're just, school is harder,
Yes,
they have other activities,
life is harder.
travel, I mean, yeah, they're just so busy. So it's hard to splice together that schedule. We can't do it with, like, the old days, we might have done it with 60 guards. Now, Tim, how many do we have?
We had just under 90 and I probably handled 12 to 15 schedule changes a day. I mean, it was every day, 7 days a week from Memorial Day to Labor Day in regards to adjusting it.
Oh, the RTOs, were every day streaming.
There were
in.
over 400
Wow.
full summers.
Let's get part of the joke, at least you have a bigger pool of lifeguards to draw from.
But that's gonna.
It's good and bad.
Yeah,
But
that's, yeah, go
I
ahead.
also wanna make sure that we have the quality kids too, and not just some of the random, so like, same thing Minnie said before, if we get to the point where we see pushback on the amount, bring that to us sooner rather than later during the year.
Sure.
So that if we need to adjust a little bit, I know Andrew will have to do work there to figure that out if we change hourlies, but,
Rates on average went up over 7% is what we're doing next year,
Mhm.
which is good.
for both supervisors and.
But like, don't let that stand, like, hey, we're having trouble filling with quality kids, we need to go up an extra, whatever, 50, like, bring it to us, we can't guarantee we'll do it.
My
but,
guess is
you know.
we probably will get that request until April, May next
That's
year
right,
anyway.
that's right, yeah.
You know, It's not the right season for
Yep.
recruiting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sounds like though, because we're so flexible, that's a potential tool, because we're dealing with it.
You deal with that, it's a very complex, there's a lot of variables in it. I mean, there really are. It's not, I mean, it's the school, it's extracurriculars. These are 15 and 16-year-olds. You can't tell them they gotta show the work when their parents are taking them on 3 vacations this summer that are 2 weeks in length.
Yep.
I mean, you're kind of always dealing, and then the college goes back mid-August, they don't come on the second week of June. I mean, it's one of those things where you just got this roller coaster that you gotta ride, you gotta put together the best group that you've got to cover.
And on top of that, these younger kids have restrictions by the state on when they're allowed to work and how
Yeah.
much they're allowed to
Right.
work, and it's very, very challenging to get that
Mhm.
all covered, but Tim does a great job with that.
Should have had hair before he started
He
sketching.
did, yeah.
He didn't have hair when he went higher.
Then we have those bad smoke days. Those are-
Oh,
That was a first.
I know, wasn't that something?
All right, so we want to talk about the community center next.
sure. Okay, reducing expenditures 4,720 or 2.4%. We have expanded levels for security cameras this year at 10K, but we also had sidewalk repairs and an entry door replacement in the current year, so we have that, and then revenues are budgeted to increase 11K or 20.4%.
Love the security cameras. Thanks.
Yeah,
Of note there, you also will have a carryover that's been carried over for a number of years. That will also be added to that. So it's a total funding of 17,000 for
Cool.
not only, we're of course going to do the rec center, pool area, those types of things, but according to our IT manager, Nick Chalice, we're also going to be expanding over to platform where the funding takes us over to platform in the tennis center.
Wonderful.
And then in 25, it'll be fully built out.
The turf and all the fields over there have been, the vandalism.
I don't know, this does not
I know.
include that. to
I
my
know,
knowledge,
and that's not
but-
included, I just am passing that on from the board, there's excessive vandalism of equipment, as you
it's,
know.
it's been identified
Yeah.
in the plan. That's something we want, whether that, we could afford
Not
the
this year.
additional cameras, I can't speak to
Not this
that
year,
because that's
yeah.
more of an IT thing, but we eventually, yes, they are in the plan.
Part of the
Um,
upgrades that we did this year, that our IT department did this year, is setting up so that we're ready to then fully expand for all facilities at Main Park as listed in the service level.
Right.
And then there's a plan to have that for for other locations throughout the spring.
And the carryover dollars for cameras.
Will be added into
helps a
this.
lot.
And that was gonna be, so on the carryover, and you mentioned before too, is that carryover that'll go all the way to a budget decision, or just that we'll be voting on that sometime in early 24?
No, that'll be part of this budget. So
Okay.
it's when we deliver the carryovers to you, we'll have a discussion on those. You'll see a $7,000 line item that says it's been carried over a number of years, but we know we've been waiting for, and 24 is the year.
Right, we do that evaluation, keep carrying it over, and go, never mind, it's using it, so, okay, cool. All right, we have avoided the big question long enough, I guess we're on to the tennis center.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly give you platform tennis and
Oh,
get
sorry.
that out of the way. Expenditures are up 7260 or 39, well, almost 40% due to part-time wages for cleaning of the new building. Due to projected revenue increases of 6K or 16.2%, there'll be almost no impact to the bottom line there, so. Now we're ready for tennis. All right, we expect some significant changes to tennis in 2024. We've been working with indoor tennis to move towards a full-service racket center concept for the tennis center with a unified year-round operation as opposed to our current model, which splits operation of the tennis center between the municipality and indoor tennis.
So it splits it seasonal.
Correct. 7 12s and 5 12s. Rec is 5. So that's our current model, that's service level 1. The new model could take a few different forms. One is a third-party professional management company could be hired to run operations. The opposite end of that would be a year-round management of the center through the recreation department, so an in-house version. Or you could have a combination of a municipal and third-party operation. Any third-party operations would be implemented through an RFP process, negotiating an agreement of services versus fees. And so there could be a lot of variation in that
What
portion
they're
of
bringing,
the plan, yes. So to hit the service levels quickly, in service level 1, that's where we are now. That's the current model we've always had. Expenditures are budgeted to go up 15K or 6.1% due to an increase in the part-time wages for in-house cleaning, snow removal, pest control. Revenue is projected to decrease by 3% or 7K, and that's just based on current trends. So then the service levels kind of piece together some of the in-house or other operations. Service level 2 is a full-time racket center manager. This would be an overall manager of the department and its programs. This position would be expected to help guide the process to bring us into that racket center concept. Hopefully, bringing in platform tennis into the fold, pickleball on site perhaps, and those kinds of things, and just expanding program opportunities, generating more revenue, filling courts. That's what this position would be expected to do.
Sorry for clarification. You mentioned about this being part of the racket center concept. If we go with a third party, would they want to select this person or would they work with whoever we?
Well, and again, because you can negotiate anything in those agreements, I think the expectation is that they would bring their own personnel.
So that position doesn't exist.
We wouldn't
in the
need that
third-party
position.
model.
In a good third party,
Arrangement.
we wouldn't need.
Okay.
The question that I have here is, I think we need to decide internally whether we want to be the municipality that has a full-time position, has a full-time, facility, and does that internally, or whether we want to farm that out and have somebody manage that process for us, which might include any number of things like management, maintenance, fees, booking, all that kind of stuff. And I think that decision ultimately determines the cost structure of all this.
Except that I would totally agree with you, except that the one difference is that maintenance in all scenarios is now gonna be required to be done by the municipality. There's no outside firm that's gonna come in and say that they're gonna maintain the grounds for us. At least that's not the typical model.
Yeah, we had a conversation with USTA yesterday with, some consulting with them. It is possible that could happen, that they could bring maintenance with them. I mean, I don't know that we'll be able to completely break, like we would probably take care of more of the capital. Pick a cutoff point, whatever it is, if it's over 5K or 10K or whatever we decided. The municipality would take care of that. So things like the annual court prep, that's 30K or so. We would still provide that.
With what staff?
Oh, that's a contract. Yeah, that's an RFP process also. Things like bubble up, down, we'll never get away from Public Works support on that.
So I think I want to add to David, so again, things to be determined as we move forward, so we can go through that whole process, but specifically for maintenance. There's the option for us to take care of it all, to your point. But what we heard yesterday is, again, similar to the operations manager. They may want to have their own maintenance staff so that based on their programming schedule. With our type of courts, with being hard true and needing to have water and be swept. And all the various things based on programming from, let's say, 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. at night. That may be something they want to manage, not us. There could be the option that we do that, and that's part of some of the service levels we're talking about here, especially service level 3, when we get to that, is us providing not only a full-time person to house that, but also manage to have one part-time person there for 15 hours a day.
It sounds like even that decision would be wrapped into, right?
Correct,
So that-
correct, that's absolutely true, so I wanna, like, based on what David's saying, there is the potential on what that contractor comes to you with if we went down the third-party management piece of it. They may want to do, and they just say, we got this covered, we're good, and we make that arrangement for things like capital items. You know, a fence falls down, fence needs repaired, and it's 10 grand, that's more us, because it's our facility. Whereas, something like a hose bib breaks, and it's, $500, that's on them.
Do we have a sense yet of what it would cost to do all that internal versus RFP? We won't know until we throw out an RFP, or does something like the USTA give us an estimate? Similar facilities are paying X for all this stuff wrapped in.
Well, the answer to your question is yes, that service level 4 is essentially in-house operation. I'm sure that, we're gonna have a way better understanding if we go down that path. And I'm sure as we get closer and analyze this further, we can probably fine tune that number, but that's our starting point, is service level 4 for an in-house operation. And I think the RFP process and working with the USTA will have a better understanding of the other side of it too. But when Andrew was going through all those different scenarios or different pieces that could be trade-offs, that's what I meant when I said this could have a very wide-ranging budget impact depending on what's negotiated in the agreement.
Yeah.
The maintenance,
Andrew's note, I'm looking, like you mentioned, item 4. Shows in one part of the budget book, 205,100. There's a note at the bottom, additional revenue of 275,000. What's the debt number for item 4?
70,000.
The net number of funded through several service level 4 is $12,500. So it'd be a revenue neutral or a net cost neutral funding through service level 4.
Fund all of them, 1 through 4 is essentially approximately.
Okay, so I'm gonna do 2 things here. One is I'm gonna explain where we got to and how we got to service level 4. So let's let David finish that, because that will tell you how, and then based on that, what discussions we've then had and the timing of things that are coming to the commission for this type of, and we can go through that. I think that's probably the best way to handle that. This was the information we had in September,
Yes.
late September. There's a lot has changed, a lot has happened. So let's make sure what is presented, explain, and then we can explain the difference thereof.
the landscape changes on a weekly basis here. There's a lot of moving parts. We're learning and, gathering more information. So, moving on to service level 3, that's our full-time maintenance position. This is another, year-round responsible for all tennis maintenance, buildings, grounds, courts. Backing up just quickly for racket center manager, for the starting point, what we put in the budget was a 50-50 split of that tennis center manager with indoor. Full-time tennis center manager, the starting point there is 7/12 contribution from indoor tennis cost sharing on that position. Indoor would contribute 7/12 of the cost of that maintenance position in service level 3, just as a starting point. We don't know.
Yeah.
In the past.
That's where we were in September.
That assumes that indoor
Yeah.
is still
But
operating.
7/10, which
running.
they're not,
Which,
they're 7/12.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, that's what's in the budget
Yeah.
in front.
And the increase of that 15 hours a day of having one part-time, so you have a full-timer plus that's then all borne by Indoor in this, what we had in.
Well,
This scenario,
The printed old version.
This is gonna be hard enough to get through. Let's at least get through what was September and then pivot to where we are now.
Okay, so that's the full-time maintenance position. Service level 4, as I said before, wraps that all together and assumes that it's a year-round in-house operation run by the rec department. We run the bubbles. We run winter tennis. We run spring, summer, and fall tennis. That's the service level 4 model. So that gets you through the service levels at this point.
Having said all that, now what?
I just wanted to add, since I was on the call yesterday, with USTA, they had another gentleman on the call who has 20 years in, I'll say, experience working with municipal courts, and spent part of his time managing public facilities, is very familiar with the large, I'll say, third-party vendors.
Yeah.
Gave us some goalposts, if you will, to include in the RFP that we are going to issue. Which I thought was very helpful, gave us an idea of, potentially what we should be looking at from a, flat fee, maybe percentage of gross revenues standpoint. So we've got a whole lot more information now
Yeah.
that even if we decide at the end of the day, we're not going to go that third party route. I think it's beneficial in just understanding the potential for the tennis center overall, the racket center overall. Because part of this will, again, and it's always been, go back to programming, right? And are we providing programming either through a third party or through the municipality, if we take it over, that meets the needs of the residents and the general population? So, sorry, I just wanted to put that in there, David, because I thought that was beneficial yesterday.
No, thank you. So I don't know, did you want to go into what you wanted to talk about next?
No, I mean, but I
Okay.
think we're done with where we were in
Okay.
In the
September.
past, yes.
Basically, stepping through with a continued relationship with Indoor through service levels 2 and 3, and then service level 4 is us completely taking it over.
Right, back to it. Now what? As- as Kirk
So
said,
now we have an update based on meetings.
and
Well, let's step through what we're going through for the next 3 to 4 months.
Okay, and Ian, you might want to join us. I just want to say that, first of all, thanks to Commissioners Flynn and Randy, they've been working with us step by step. Manager McGill, Andrew McCreary, and Ian have been working on this very hard too. So this is a big decision. This is a paradigm shift for tennis. Indoor tennis has been around well over 50 years. We've appreciated their partnership and they've been helping us through this process too. I mean, I think they've reached a point where, the strain on a small volunteer board is taking its toll on them. I mentioned before, COVID took its toll, not just on everyone, but specifically, it was hard on rec programming. It was hard on indoor tennis. They've had some major struggles with mechanical issues, lighting replacement, the furnace replacements that they've done have been a lot of work and a lot of struggle for them. So I think they're at a point, and then, separately, there's the conversations that Keith alluded to about programming. We know that we need to take our game up in the programming area. We're not meeting all the needs we would like to. And then we have these two separate organizations, and while we work well together, there's just some built-in conflict transitioning through these seasons, or saying who's supposed to cover this expense or this maintenance or whatever. So I think we all recognize this. We've reached a time where we're ready for a different model for the tennis center. And personally, I think it's important that it's one umbrella that runs all things tennis. I guarantee you could poll, residents and they would have no idea that indoor tennis is a nonprofit and completely responsible for running the tennis center 7 months out of the year. They just don't understand that. They get calls for our programs, we get calls for their operations. A single responsible party, I think would be much more efficient, logical. We can distribute information more efficiently, operate more efficiently. And then I think we can make those transitions from indoor to outdoor much more
And
efficient.
it'll solve the staffing problem if you don't mind interrupting. That's just been the Condor struggle.
Excellent point. Yeah, we're both struggling to hire, part-time people,
Yeah,
seasonal people where this, you have the same maintenance crew as maintaining the indoor courts as maintaining the outdoor courts. The same person who's programming the outdoor is programming the indoor. There's many, many logical reasons to do this, and I think it makes sense and it alleviates a lot of the problem. So, in these meetings, I think one of the key steps was, we thought we would explore some options in tandem, if you will. The professional third-party management company is something that we'd like to start quickly, and see what kind of proposals we get and if they will work for the municipality's needs. Ian did, a great job putting together a very thorough RFP that is fantastic. Other staff has put in our 2 cents, and I'll let Ian maybe talk about that RFP.
Sure. So basically, as we kind of mentioned at the beginning, there's a wide variety of places we could land. One of them would be, the municipality takes everything over. One of them would be we hire an outside firm. And based on our meetings with the indoor tennis folks that we've had, that Commissioner Randy and Commissioner Flynn have attended, we've kind of been moving down these parallel paths because we wanted to have all the information for the time when we needed to make a possible decision. So I went and I benchmarked against other RFPs that have been put out nationally. We had that call with the USTA folks yesterday to talk through some questions we had and some final details. So the RFP, essentially, we would look to hire, like had been talked about, an outside firm to come in and basically run the operations of the tennis center. And based on our call with indoor tennis, probably perform some very minimal routine daily maintenance, I would call it. So like sweeping the courts, brushing the lines, because when you sweep the courts, the little debris gets on the lines, things like that, because they're going to know with their programming, okay, we have programming from this time to this time. So this is when we want the court swept. And, things like that, just very low level routine maintenance, but any kind of larger capital costs would fall to us. And we can kind of define where that line is. Like if a tennis net breaks, who's responsible for replacing it? Is that them or is that us? Like we can define that as we go, but we're more or less in a point where we could probably issue this relatively soon. And as it would be a, professional services contract, we're not bound to award it to anyone. We could just issue it and see what kind of proposals we get back if we want to.
You don't have to go low bidder.
No.
Thank you.
The service level 4 that you're talking about is the operation, is that commensurate with what we would be getting from what's in the RFP?
So one of the things that we talked with the USTA folks about was kind of how the revenue split works. Because when you hire an outside person to run your facility, you're basically saying you are collecting all the revenues and sharing some of those revenues with us. Is basically your rent for the facility. So you can either charge them a flat rate rent of X number of dollars per month, or you can say, we want, 5% of your gross revenues or 3% of your gross revenues or whatever it is. And then they kind of run everything and it's just that kind of cost sharing arrangement. So, but without knowing what their fees would be, what their projected revenues are, we don't really know. If we said we want 5% of your revenues, we don't really know what that revenue number would be.
But presumably we get that through this RFP process. The reason I'm asking is, at some point, this comes back to us for a decision. And for apples to apples, we need to know what's the outside firm gonna cost? What is it gonna cost for us to do it internally? And are they the same level of service? All
Providing the
things
same
considered,
service.
right?
And I would say, the one little caveat is the outside firm. The quote unquote cost is really just the maintenance cost for us, because we're not paying them to run the facility, they're paying us. The share of their revenues to be able to run it, so we're not paying the outside firm anything, we would just be paying for whatever maintenance stuff we agree to undertake and do. Versus bringing it in-house, we'd have a lot more salaries, wages, things like that, but we'd also get all of the revenue instead of just like 5% of the revenue.
But I think to Commissioner Grell's question is say, well, here's the cost for hiring the full-time racket center manager, the cost for maintenance, and what the legacy cost, whatever it is, as opposed to here is the fee they're charging, whatever, basically debt versus debt.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I meant to just, you had mentioned the word apples to apples. We will not know apples to apples because we don't run the facility in the way we're gonna be asking of the RFP.
But
We don't,
can't we estimate that? Can't we say, we think it's gonna, like, I mean, I understand that we might not have a definitive answer to the penny. But we can say if we do it ourselves, cost is likely X. If we go this route, cost is gonna be Y, and we might still have to do these things over here anyway, but that's a portion of the Y cost.
Yes,
So
the
we
answer,
can look at this and have what we need to finally make a decision. is what I'm
Well,
saying.
well, I'll just, your point is taken. But the other side of this puzzle is. If we're just looking at that, you're assuming the pie stays the same size. We also have to ask the question,
The total amount of
is,
revenue.
is
Oh, I understand.
revenue growth different
Yeah,
when you have a third party who is motivated to bring in revenue? Right?
yeah,
So there are different dynamics at play here, right? If it is all internal, right? We are doing the marketing, we are doing all those things. If we bring in a third party, they have different dynamics that they are driven to maximize revenue for their own purposes on the facility. So even if expenses are different, that the net value is going to have a different driver as well.
understood, but presumably we get an estimate on that too, right? Because we can't be the only facility that the USDA has worked with of our size, of the number of courts,
Yes.
like, I'm assuming USDA here, could be whatever. But the assumption I'm making, maybe incorrectly, is that along with that, we would have some conversation that would say, what do you think? And again, it might not be, maybe we're off a couple percent here or there, it's an estimate. But we would be able to understand, if we take over this facility, in our experience, this is what this facility type would generate.
I think they have a good idea of revenue generation. I mean, the industry, the professional people, they have estimates based on per court. Outdoor court, we can do this per month. Indoor court, we can do this per month. They'll have a good idea of revenue, and then that will drive what they would offer in terms of a percentage. We will have a list of costs that we think that we need them to cover. Because we will know based on, or at least we'll have an idea of what we could cover with our revenues. We're gonna have utilities, we're gonna have, bubble up down costs. There's gonna be some costs that don't go away. Court prep each year is a big one.
I think what I'm getting at here is, to your point, Andrew, at some point, we'll be able to have a discussion that says, we've gotten this RFP back, here are the options. This is what our residents expect or have come to expect. This is what we're gonna offer, level of service that we're gonna offer, which may be different than what we have today. These are potential options we might be able to offer, which may be different than what we have today, but we shouldn't be blind as to how much all that's gonna cost.
No,
Right, and I think the point was, there's some assumptions will be different. I would hope
Right.
that we take much really do with budgeting, a pessimistic view of what we think the new folks are gonna promise they deliver.
Right.
I'm gonna triple your tenant, yeah. Pick a more conservative number of what that amount can be. Hey, if they exceed the number, to Commissioner Flint's point, that we're topping markets we haven't had before, great, terrific, but I think we should be more conservative. in making that evaluation.
And my personal opinion is that from the limited meetings I've already been in, the research I've done, that both of these options are gonna bring in more revenue for us. This is really good news. Either one of these directions are a huge improvement to what we're doing now. If we bring in-house these 2.5 additional positions,
Right.
we will be bringing in a lot more revenue.
Yeah, that's a great point. A
Their
full-time,
options.
a full-time manager, there's going to be a lot of efficiency gains there. They are gonna be able to focus more on programming, and that's gonna generate more revenue. So as opposed to having a part-time person that's splitting
Seasonal, yeah.
their time between trying to be a professional and a manager, you have someone who's just focused on the overall department. So it's gonna be a big revenue generator.
I agree with both of you. So the question from a budget perspective is what are we doing right now? What do we need to vote on? What's going in the budget? Are we saying sticking with service level 1 and we will do this next year when things play out?
Both are gonna generate
what-
revenue, so maybe you don't need budgets.
So
Right.
what's the proposal?
The proposal is to fund the full-time maintenance position as presented.
Okay.
Okay.
We wanted to get that position on board because under either scenario, that's a
Right.
position that gets hired.
So that's 100,000?
Yes. The reason to bring that in now is because we want to start to be able to advertise for that sort of mid-December, get that person on board so that they become familiar with bubbles coming down, all of the little, I'll say nuances that go with the tennis center.
And I assume that would help indoor continue to operate their season at the level they need to operate
I
at.
would say that would be an accurate statement, yes.
Okay.
100,000, done.
Is that the net number?
Yes, it's a net number, assuming that whatever scenario we do, we're gonna have revenue offsets to that position.
Yep.
Whether that is an RFP agreement or increase in revenue for our side, having to then make that decision in March, April. No, sorry, earlier than that, February.
Yeah.
Whether we go the third-party contractor route or not, and do it in-house, we'll have those other expenses, but to have on the books that full-time maintenance position needs to be at that $100,000.
When you say revenue offsets, are you saying we need to increase fees because we're trying to make it a net zero?
No, we're scheduling our courts, our 15 courts will be
Yes.
better scheduled.
That's
Oh,
correct.
gotcha.
That's
Okay,
correct.
understood.
So the proposal then is to say, adding above, pulling above the line, this $100,000 expenditure. I've heard at least one yes.
Yeah.
2, 3,
That's
okay,
fine.
great, so
Sure.
we'll.
I just want to say I'm very excited about either one of these options and extremely grateful to every single person who's put in so many hours in the past 6 months. And indoor tennis for bringing us this issue, these issues and raising these ideas to us and making all the connections that they've made. I think either option is going to significantly improve the experience for our residents and the revenue to support tennis in a sustainable way that we all want to support it.
And just as a second part of that, I think we should try to get that RFP out soon.
Well, yeah, we have,
Target.
Go ahead.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, we have another meeting set up with indoor tennis to continue the conversation on Tuesday, the 28th. And then our target date for releasing the RFP is December 1st.
Yeah, and we had a conversation yesterday on that call about appropriate time for that to be out. They're gonna help us also with where we potentially should direct that.
Sure.
So we'll do that, but about 30 days to respond, 30 days to evaluate. So we had a tentative timeline that said we would be through our process and have a February 27th award by the commission. They also told us that we should allow about 60 days if it's third party for implementation. So that would put us at the end of indoors season, get us into the beginning of what has traditionally been our season. But I think
The timeline works out.
the timeline works at this point. If we can hold.
We don't have any.
All right, so.
It will
so
be
at
a
least-
compressed time.
It will be, it's, we're not leaving ourselves a whole lot of wiggle room, but we are where we are.
It is tough.
So, but at least, okay, we've got a plan on the RFP, we've got some dates, we've got the 3+ votes for the 100,000. Is there anything else that we need to answer on the rec budget at this point in time?
I mean, I just keep in mind though that the RFP, if the RFP process does not bear fruit, there needs to be another option. And
Right.
we are a little up in the air on that one. We're not sure what that'll look like, but time will tell.
Hiring more
We're
people.
here.
Well,
It could be that we have to hire that full-time tennis center manager in a very
Short
tight
period of time.
timeline also. And we would need to ramp up too.
Right.
Because, we need at least 60 days as well. Someone needs to be hiring seasonal staff, someone needs to be doing the program planning, someone needs to be planning those bubbles coming down. Someone needs the RFP to prep the courts. I mean, I want everyone to understand this is not easy cookie cutter stuff. There's a lot of work that needs to get done.
Right, and we appreciate what you're doing. Lines of communication are open. It may be a matter of Mr. Dennell is on our discussion sessions, the next two we have between now and the end of the year, just to provide updates on
Yeah,
things.
and I don't know how much we'll know between now and the end of the year, quite honestly, Steve.
Sorry.
That's why I said maybe,
In terms of
because depending
updates.
on if there's something to tell us about, great, I think we keep
I
that.
think,
open.
I think the first meeting in February is that date.
Okay,
Well, actually,
That's probably one of the biggest ones to come up.
yeah, oh, and I was gonna say, we said February 27th for like a decision date on the RFP, but really, we had the RFPs due to us like early January
Yeah.
to give that time for review, and then if we need to
Right.
interview people and to make a recommendation, so, I think if we get those RFPs in the second week of January, we'd probably know by the second January commission meeting whether or not we're recommending moving forward with a third party or hiring someone in
Good.
person. So we could kind of look at that end of January, beginning of February timeframe, and then that would still give us plenty of time.
Which,
To.
Use that word for
Time,
plenty.
skip the plenty.
It gives us time, it gives us adequate time.
okay.
So I wouldn't use that either. I would just say time.
And we are
And you have job descriptions, right?
proactive, we have job descriptions,
We do
so.
have that done, yeah.
So I wanted to also just make, so this $100,000 line item not only benefits us long-term, but in the short term, we believe, to David's point, is for the existing indoor season that is remaining upon this hire, we are going to advertise this upon budget approval, December 13th.
Nice.
So the day you guys approve the budget, the next day it will go live for taking submissions. So we're hoping no later than early February that this person's on board to understand more of the tennis season, besides just bubbles up and bubble down. Or bubble down at that point. There will be a short-term impact that we're hoping they get up to speed quickly on seeing an indoor season and what that looks like and what that envisions today. That's one. Two is the RFP process. And then three, for the RFP process, we're having that reviewed by on the 29th. I don't think that was mentioned as well. For the USTA folks that we spoke to, we'll be having another discussion with them on the 29th. After Ian's buttoned it up, so we'll send it over to them. And then after Thanksgiving break, they'll be reviewing it before we send it out on the first. There'll be kind of eyes on it.
They're also gonna provide us with some other RFPs that.
Samples.
Best interest.
Awesome.
All right, okay, good. We got plans.
Thank
I
you all
know,
for the
it
attention.
sounds like on that, Ms. Lincoln, how is the play? Is there anything else that we have questions for the rec department?
What do you need?
No is a good answer, but that's.
It sounds like Mindy's
Getting what they
volunteering.
need.
That's right.
In her retirement, Mindy in her retirement is going to have much more time available.
What do you
to
need?
help the rec department.
Well, I think Commissioner Silverman hit it earlier. I know it's a tight budget year, so I think we can focus on getting tennis up and running and see how that goes
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
All right, good stuff.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Awesome work.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All righty, let's keep pressing forward. I got a hard stop at 12. O'clock.
Yeah, gentlemen, everybody.
Technical holiday. Yeah, it might be just a tad behind schedule.
We're ahead of schedule. We're ahead of schedule.
We're half hour ahead of schedule.
We're ahead of schedule.
We're half hour ahead of the schedule.
Let's get it done.
Only general government. Yeah, I'm gonna, you guys can start. I'm gonna go to the place room.
We can wait, sure.
You can start.
All right, cool. Right, Commissioner Rainey said proceed without it for the moment, so we're talking general government and Ian is there, so you wanna just start the show? Yeah, that'd be great.
So general
Don't
government.
have to go to
He's just doing general management to start.
I'm just doing general management. The only difference from last year is that we have our biennial boards and authorities dinner.
Page 38 of the budget binder, page 28.
All along.
27, I'm sorry.
27, budget binder, page 37.
Yes. So the only difference from last year is our biennial boards and authorities dinner, which happens every other year. And we did fund this in the budget this year. even though we know it is a tight budget year, because we felt with the transition of our boards and authorities, this was a very good opportunity to say a final thank you to all of our departing board members who may not continue on in a transitional phase to the new boards. So since this happens every other year, it didn't happen last year, happening this year, that's the only change to the general management side of the budget.
All right, any questions? All right, we're good. Thank you, Ian. Next.
Legal services. So legal services, same page 27, budget binder page 37. And we'll move forward from there. Legal services encompasses our retainer, which is the, for our solicitor. This is the main expense within this line item 1, or service level 1. Other counsel includes labor counsel, litigation fees, and telecommunication counsel.
All right.
Any questions on that?
No.
Financial management encompasses the finance department. There is a change this year with a recommendation to no longer have the software program OpenGov.
Right.
I am recommending not funding that anymore. Not only do I feel it's not being utilized for a $10,000 number, there's not enough activity to warrant continuing to pay for that. The second thing is that actual activity we receive is actually due to our, it's for people looking up assessed values, which I feel not only can you look up on the county, but you actually now next year will be able to look it up on our own software. So linked from our website will be our own internal collection system in which you'll be able to view all information there. So we've expanded in that level, and that's the #1 thing people are using it for.
Okay.
All things other for data analysis, budget, so on and so forth that we've used OpenGov for. I did outline in a memo to the commission what I have planned to replace those things. And we should be adequately sufficed to replace that. So
Right.
thank you. I have no problem there. Service level 3, I did want to update you on intergovernmental finance functions. We have been approached and are in communication with 2 other municipalities to add to the cooperative. They're Etna Borough and Churchill Borough. We are also in communication with the DCED for potential funding of that program at 50% for those 2 boroughs. So all positive news. We'll have a follow-up next following Thanksgiving. So early next year, we may see cooperative agreements coming your way.
You know, I would think that
Why, I mean, Etna, I mean, they're hardly neighboring boroughs. How did this come up?
Word of mouth.
Lots of conversations at various places. Connect has been a big one.
Nothing, you didn't have anything to do with it, I guess.
Not directly, no. It's all Andrew.
Churchill, it can't be connected.
It got around that what we were doing, and especially since both people are smiling at with our cooperation with Dormont, both parties are smiling at this point.
Right.
There's no hardship on us. I think we've learned some things, don't get me wrong, and that's not for today's meeting.
Right.
But we've learned some things, and we're gonna make sure those adjustments are made within future people coming to the cooperative, but we think it's a benefit thing for our region because we're better together than apart
Right.
in
Right.
this function.
I think you might want to take over the county after the news last night. Honey, they got off.
Moving.
There we go.
Go back, sorry, can I go back? to
Turn the
legal
page.
for a second? So for legal, the #1, the 292, almost $300,000, that's the solicitor. Do we keep track of hours
No,
used?
No.
So
There's also
what's the
litigation
what's the
again, right?
expected number of hours that we have access to the solicitor, or how's that agreement work?
I'd have to go back through and ask, because we do get a breakdown every month. I believe, do we get a breakdown still?
we do.
Yeah, so we could look at that. Mindy, this was, so I've been here for a while.
Yeah, this was.
Our original agreement was with Eckerd Siemens.
Yeah.
We were always billed on an hourly basis, right? When Buchanan Ingersoll responded to the RFP, they proposed a flat fee.
Right.
I will tell you personally, selfishly, in my position as manager, I find that to be very beneficial.
Yep.
Because it allows you all as
Right.
electeds to pick up the phone anytime you want and reach out to the solicitor on any issues that we're currently discussing. I would have to tell you that I believe that financially, it's been beneficial to the municipality to have that arrangement. I'll also tell you that from having our principal point of contact be Phil Weiss. Phil is a Mount Lebanon resident. He's also a partner in the firm. We have not seen, I think we've seen 3 increases
10 years, yes.
over the 10 or 12 years that we've had.
Yeah, I just don't have a way to know if this is a good value,
No, we'll-
$300,000.
We'll get you the numbers.
Yeah.
But again, I was just wanted to sort of throw in
Background, yeah.
background in terms of how we got to where we are.
Sure, okay, that would be helpful. I don't remember per month, total per year, whatever, however you want to break it down.
All right.
Building on what, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Just to throw it out there, a lot of municipalities have their own internal city attorney.
Yeah, on the payroll, I could not.
$300,000.
Imagine.
I think I could probably have a
That's-
pretty good city
That's
attorney.
literally where I was going. It's a lot of money, just want to make sure it's the best use of funds.
And I understand that point, so we'll definitely get you that information. I will tell you that, there are some residual or benefits to having resources of a larger firm.
Yeah.
Because while Phil is very good in terms of most of what we deal with here, there are times when HR will reach out to Phil for a personnel question, which means we're not reaching out to Campbell Durant and being billed separately for that information.
Yeah.
So, again, understand the point, we'll get you the information and commission can move forward.
I think the question is if we go and have a discussion like that, we have to be able to understand what the difference of costs is. Like, so just having like, what is Buchanan Ingersoll billing in terms of hours, or how many hours have they done over the years? Like, that's only part of the conversation. I think the other half of the conversation is what is the going rate for these services out there in general? What are the other options? I probably tend to agree with you that a flat rate is better than hourly just in general, but I'm sure there are other municipalities that have a similar structure. I know there are firms that do municipal government law, so it's a question of how often do we want to go out to the market for these services? We've had this conversation with different things, municipal engineer, municipal,
We do it with auditors, we do it with labor council.
I think the question is, do we want to do that? Do we want to see what the market looks like? That kind of stuff. So I think it's more than just getting, how many hours has Buchanan Ingersoll given us?
I agree. Well, the other question you mentioned, like the idea of a city attorney, is to look and say, with a firm like a Buchanan Ingersoll or any large firm, there are things where Phil goes, I have to go ask whoever who's the specialist in that. Whereas if you just have a city attorney, whether or not
Right.
that person has the depth of
Right.
resources that we would need for our many questions. Yeah, they'd be less expensive, but they'd then have to go reach out to somebody else,
Right,
which
that's
drives up the cost.
The trade-off, at some point, the less expensive, maybe becomes. the
More
trade-off.
expensive.
If it would be helpful for the full commission, because Mindy requested yesterday, and I did send to her the RFP that we issued when we transitioned to Buchanan, as well as the
Mhm.
response
Right.
to that RFP, so that you understand, because the RFP contains sort of a list of scope of services, if you will.
Right.
So I can circulate that to the full commission if you think that'd be beneficial.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think, notwithstanding any kind of service we've gotten from Buchanan, not making a statement on that. I think it's good that we understand what we're dealing with rather than just continually, just approving and moving on these types of service agreements.
We're doing our due diligence.
Correct.
And again, if the commission would like to develop sort of a schedule, I wouldn't recommend going out for a whole variety of services in 1 year.
No, stagger.
But if you want to stagger them so that every 5 years, we're looking at going out with an RFP for solicitor, we're going out with an RFP for engineer, we're going out for an RFP for labor council, one for auditor, that's, I think that makes sense just to see what the market is telling us.
Yeah, I'd like to see that policy developed and, on that schedule, but I think the spectrum isn't just go out to RFP, it's, the spectrum is, do you hire internally and then bring specialists in? Or do you go to RFP, right? And what is that spectrum and how does it change over time? Again, I can hire a city attorney and then bring in specialists. I can hire a municipal engineer and bring in specialists, or I can say, just give me the whole package. For me, that's it's at that level that I want the analysis rather than, just RFP periodically.
Well, I think to your point, it's like, we say, let's say, geez, for me to volunteer the next president, when we should have a discussion session, but we say we have a discussion session, we talk about legal services, which addresses all the scenarios you're talking about, much the same way we have one that addresses engineering. Again, we can, you know, look at everything related to that subject area, because we may choose to your point, not do an RFP or do an RFP for something else.
I'd be happy
At
with
least
just the
deep
policy.
dive it and see where we come out.
I'd be happy with just a policy that says we're gonna do for these professional services on this schedule.
Yeah.
Every 5 years. If we can get that done,
That's all I was.
that would be a nice step.
Yeah,
A schedule.
There's plenty that we can include in that, so.
Okay, all right.
Oh.
All right, Lily.
Any other questions on legal services or finance? Moving on. Treasury and tax collection, this did go down, the budget did go down for over $40,000 next year collectively. This is due to the fact that we implemented a new software in 2023, and that's going well. We should be live with that software for stormwater and solid waste fee collection come February 1st. So that should be live and ready to go for an online based service that you'll be able to view your bills, view your receipts, view any information, payment history, everything you would expect in a management platform for those things. And then tax will follow behind in June 1st for that billing for both municipal and school district. I did want to call attention to service level 6, which we are funded through at the success that we had with the summer intern program. We found sometimes it's all about the people you find. But it was a very successful program. We're recommending doing it again. The manager did fund it again. With the primary focus being helping the new collection software. So is, using a younger person may help with video generation, meaning showing online ways of doing it, doing those kind of personalized, while our software does have general videos that are available to help the online person, maybe focus them not only on internal procedures, but also helping residents navigate, so that the real intention of this new software is to limit phone calls to the tax office.
Can you remind me why the net cost is 3240? What's that? I'm assuming there's a split there.
The school district splits.
Oh, school, okay,
Yep,
thanks.
yep. So, 50%, yeah, and they're on board with it as well, and it's a really good program. While the intern this last year was not from Mount Lebanon, we do team up with Mount Lebanon to try and get a Mount Lebanon high schooler in for that intern program.
But we're not exclusive.
No,
That's
no,
nice
so
to see.
it was Upper St. Clair High School.
High school is interested in tax.
Yeah, well, it's the treasury, it's the whole treasury gamut, so we let them not only collect payments, we actually let them deposit checks with all oversight to the program, but they do everything within it, they answer questions. And the anecdote, I know we're pressed for time, but the candidate we had actually was talking, he's 17, 18 years old, talking Led Zeppelin, talking all these things with these residents, and the residents loved him. They loved him. He was great, and there's also that aspect of the intern program of them learning how to interact with people, right? So in a business environment, it was very beneficial. It was all around. We really enjoyed having Stefan. Yeah, it was good. And we told him, you just let us know, we'll write the recommendation.
Yeah.
He actually is interested in possibly coming back next year, but I highly doubt that. That he's in college, but moving on.
I think like the police recruiting, keep an eye on that kid.
Yeah, he was a great
Graduates,
kid.
we maybe have a
We had a going away for party over him, and he brought his friend in, and it was nice. It was a very nice program. And kudos to Tammy Camazine, who is the treasury manager. She spearheaded the entire thing.
Right.
So it's a good program, and for relatively inexpensive, and it does provide a good service. So moving on to page 30, budget binder, page 40, office services. This is no change in service level 1 for the expected services out of service level 1. There is a funding of service level 2, which is the customer service center virtual welcome. I have a slide on this here in just a second, but I wanted to explain where this came from. Is we have had in exploring safety and enhancing safety in this building specifically. The customer service center is an area that we feel needs more secured. And especially with ballistic paneling and those types of things, because an event could happen. In this world we live in today, we had costs run on that, and it's well over $100,000 to secure that area. So we started thinking differently of how we could do this, right?
That's not in the budget right now.
That's not, it's in a capital item.
We talked about it
We
in
can-
capital and it's not.
It's not in this budget. It's not recommended in this budget.
This is the reason why.
This is the reason why, is this virtual welcome center. So I did want to share what
Your
this looks
statement-
like.
$75,000.
I'm trying to. So I will share this on the screen here.
It's a very different experience.
It is. All right, so the item on the right. You may see this at various locations at UPMC facilities, medical facilities.
Yep.
You see it at Quest Diagnostics and those types of
Right.
things. The difference here is that we're not asking you to register, it's to connect to somebody. So this kiosk would have push buttons at the bottom. You can sort of see 4 buttons at the bottom here. We can define those to be 15, we can have them just be 1, whatever it may be. Our start is when we do this, it's going to be 1 button. It's going to go to who would have been sitting at the.
Call someone.
Call somebody, but you'll get a face, you'll be able to see it, and we'll be potentially able to expand this to where it can go to different people directly. And there's redundancies that come with this and those types of things at the customer service side of things. Where this will be placed will no longer be, it will not be 100 feet into the building, it'll be in the rotunda. So when you walk in, you will have to take 5 steps and you'll be able to, 5, 6 steps, and you'll be able to, if you don't know where you're going, and there'll be a signage that will say, hey, you need to speak to someone, just press here. That's all you have to do. Okay. Eventually we will have security cameras that will be able to be piped in so that you can see if someone's struggling and they don't know where they're going. You can actually on this machine pop on and say, can I help you? Please come over to the machine, we can help you, and those types of things. So there's plans as we evolve, but this is one of the first steps to get there. In addition, the 25,000 is really, the majority of that for the capital expense is for signage. In this building, the thing we struggle with the most is when you walk in, you don't know where you're going.
Right.
And we are going to enhance that, right? So our first thought is, can we do it before we buy permanent signage? We want to make sure that if we can do it digitally, we can do it digitally. So we're going to explore putting another kiosk that is touchscreen that can point you to where you need to go. If we need to do permanent signage, we'll do permanent signage. We're going to pilot what makes the most sense, but it's similar to you walk in and on the beam of the building, it would say permits and inspections and have an arrow upward, so you know you can go upstairs and talk to permit and inspections. If you need to go to parking and tax, it'll tell you to go downstairs. In addition, we'll also have better signage to know where the elevator is. That's a huge issue here when you go to the customer service desk, is a lot of people asking, where's the elevator? We don't have signage to where it is because it's behind a door. It's not like you walk in and the elevator is right to your right or left. It's, so the proper signage and wayfinding within this building for this specific purpose is something we want to make sure we enhance. There's other issues that are going to come up. We know that. We don't know them all yet, but we're open to figuring them out and making sure that people are sitting behind in safe areas. The other aspect to it is there will be a carryover requested for building security enhancements. So one of the security enhancements is upstairs on the 2nd floor will be to put them behind a buzzed door. So currently there are 2 administrative assistants that sit in an open area and
Right.
without a locked
Just right
facility.
here, you're talking
No,
about.
right upstairs.
Oh, it's upstairs.
So part of that will be door enhancements, getting the security door, getting a new door, all those different things. It'll actually probably be farmed from another door, but you've got to wire it and do all those different things to ensure that you can do that properly. So there's a plan in place to enhance the security as we go. But this is one of the first kiosks to get everybody sitting in their normal areas and behind locked facilities. The other aspect to this is we believe this will provide efficiency because you're not having to disrupt your day for staffing the customer service center. So right now we staff it from various departments throughout the day. It's not one consistent person sitting there all day. And this is the way it's been for years. And we've tried various things over the years, and we feel that you sitting at your desk will ultimately provide more efficiency and more happiness, for lack of a better term, that your day's not disrupted for those 2 to 3 hours a day. That you're sitting in one location, it's your area, so on and so forth. So part of that, part of this.
Dedicated staff right there.
That's correct. That's correct.
My secretary's upstairs for half the day and downstairs for half the day.
Yeah, and it's been that way since.
Yeah, we've tried that. At one point in time, we had volunteers behind
Right.
the desk. We've had one person that was dedicated certain hours. We've tried a number of different arrangements. Bottom line is they all come with their own set of challenges and issues. Because if you're staffing customer service center for a 2-hour shift, you've got to take a certain amount of materials with you down there so that you can still be performing your function.
Yeah.
Right? You have the computer's not the issue, but there are other pieces of paper that you need to take with you and then reverse the process when you come up. So
I haven't gotten any complaints from any of the Fourth Ward residents in 6 years that municipal staff are not accessible. And the ones that have made complaints, we've proven that they're, they've been responded to and things like that. So, I don't have any issue with that. I think it's a whole separate conversation about, having security issues aside. I get that. I think the question is whether municipal staff are accessible to the public. I think we can separate that from the need to have a secure facility, which I think increases every day. So I don't have any issue there. I think this is smart. I think the signage thing is smart. Not that I worry about how it's positioned, but I want to make sure that this is not like we're locking away staff. You know what I mean?
No,
So
there'll
how
be
that's
certain,
presented, and also I don't think we need a policy. I think it can be done easily with staff management, but making sure that we backstop that with, like what we don't want is someone who shows up and needs customer service, but they're not accessible
Or in the
through
back
that
room.
button or
Yeah.
like there has to be something there that we can make sure that, hey, there's 5,000 button presses and they were answered within a minute or whatever.
yeah, and so one of the aspects, and not to belabor it too much, but we've always tried to get those metrics with people.
Yes.
Here, this will have all the metrics of people away, not answered, what the relative time of answer,
Right.
those types of things. All those metrics will be there and we'll be evaluating those as we
We'll
go.
get into that later. but
Yeah. And with this specific one that we're going to choose, it's a pilot 90 days. So if we don't like this company, we have no obligation after 90 days.
you do like it, the money that you've spent goes towards the purchase.
Nice.
And it's again, since I sat on one of the call, Andrew and his team did most of the legwork on this. Younger, I'll say, group that is doing this, as we were on the call and we asked certain questions. I asked about the abilities, let's say that somebody pushes, when we put the different things down at the bottom, somebody pushes for inspections, they really need public works. Can that call just simply be transferred over to
Right,
whoever's
yeah.
doing public works? The question was or the answer was not yet, meaning we've heard that from other people. We're working on that. So they are going to continue to evolve their product and improve it. And a lot of that will come from customer feedback, if you will. So again, I think it's definitely worth it.
But like I said to start, we're not changing what we do now within the first, we're not going to not evaluate, okay, so someone's dedicated for those 2 hours, but they're sitting at their desk and they're responsible that anybody touches that button, they better answer. That's, but so the expectation with it, we have two hours of somebody down in the parking tax office that's dedicated 2 hours every day. Well, if they have to go to the bathroom, we now have the ability of 2 other people in the office to be sitting there ready to answer the phone. Unlike now, there would be nobody there.
There's no one there,
Right.
sometimes just
So,
understand. I have a request. So could you utilize the free resources of the Mount Lebanon Partnership just to get their design expertise? We have several designers on the partnership for the experience. I'm worried about when you walk into the municipal building. Right now, it's not great. Okay, it's probably gonna be an improvement because like you said, you have to go way down and figure out where to go. But I want a very warm, welcoming, friendly, well-designed, when we talk about signs, well thought out, well-designed, artistic component to everything we're putting in there. There's a couple designers on staff that are dying to do some art for us. Let's add some of that.
So just as this is anecdotal, and of course, plural of anecdotes is not data, but I'm gonna just say it anyways. We've been catching up on doctor's appointments in our house in the past month. And the past 2 doctor's appointments I've had have both been at UPMC facilities. They have shut down the thing and you go right to the person. It's really funny. the
So you're
kiosks.
saying they went the other way, they stopped doing
They
it?
stopped.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's only two, again, I mean, it's anecdotal, but it was just,
They
when you
stopped
were
this.
saying, they stopped this,
They
yeah.
got the kiosk, yeah.
Both
It
both
takes
these
so
two
long
doctors'
to
offices.
their process. There's such.
So again, we're not asking anybody to register for anything.
Right, exactly.
So it's a different
ex-
feel than
experience.
you're having to do touch buttons, put your date of birth.
All that
We're not
stuff,
asking
yeah.
anybody to do that, nor are we starting with, hey, go see this person, do this, or we can just answer a simple question.
It's like a FaceTime call.
It is,
It's a
but
FaceTime
we're
call,
not
it's a different
asking, nor are we gonna ask our staff to start registering people for something, or, do
Yeah,
on-screen tasks to start.
But I think the difference is you see an ATM machine, people know what to do.
Yeah.
These are relatively new enough where some people just don't know. I see it at doctor's offices, I see it physical
Yeah.
therapy. They walk in, right? They haven't closed down the assistant
Right.
center, so
Yeah.
there's still
It's
a
still
booth
there.
and a counter
Yeah.
there. And then there's these machines and people look around because they don't know that they need to use the machine.
And that's where we're
Which
gonna,
leads to the signing
Yeah.
and stuff like
Yeah.
that, so.
there's gonna be my intention is to be a red box around it.
Oh, here.
That says, some phrase that says, speak to a person here. Something that's eye-catching when you walk in, just to start, as we get forward.
Red
So
box.
that's what that $25,000 line item, annual fee of about $6,000 for the software and the package and.
Yeah.
types.
No, I do.
20, close to 20,000 for the signage, make sure that we do it right.
Thank you for clarification.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
Moving on to insurance. There was a large increase this year specifically for professional liability. For elected officials and staff, as well as police professional liability. So that's reflective in this increased budget number here. Next is employment benefits. Employment benefits is an oddball, and I do like to explain this every year. The increase in this of, close to $200,000 is actually a good thing. Here's why. Is because this is directly offset with state pension aid. So this is the fee that there's a direct revenue offset to that increase. Right, so we had,
Net cost.
so it's less of municipal tax dollars having to go to the pension fund, it's from that direct revenue offset that's here. So that's what that increase is for. We also have other non-allocated benefits in that service line item for obligations due to contractual agreements. So that's insurance. Any questions on general government overall? Okay, moving on, we'll go to other funds. This is budget page 76, binder page 171. Other fun, it is other fun. It is other fun. Other fun, yeah.
Other funds.
And we have a tab for it. It's a second to last little tab.
You can thank Terry for the tabs.
Lava.
Yeah.
I got sesame seeds in mine,
They're there.
Thank me for that.
Debt service, as projected is the way we do it, in 2024 will remain relatively flat, with no large increase. Just as a reminder, in 2025, there will be a large decrease of 365,000 in debt service, for the general fund specifically. And ultimately, in 5 years, there'll be about $1.4 million fall off in 2030. So there is some debt service capacity coming, and I know that we've discussed that at other discussion sessions over time. Sorry, make sure we got off that. Over time, we have discussed those things, so those are coming, but next year is the year. It's 365,000 in the general fund.
So what quarter would the commission need to start to see that information next year? Like, when would you expect to have those discussions about what?
We can have them anytime. I mean, that's not
I
a,
don't know if you already have a plan,
no, I do not have a
Heads up.
plan. No,
Okay.
I do not have a plan for that. No. Generally, we start talking about it with my year-end financial statements in March, and things change between now and then, so.
Is there any kind of rough, and this is one of those off the wall questions. Goes down by 365,000, does that equivocate to any kind of
Yeah.
rough number of how much you can borrow?
Depends on the interest rate.
I'm sure, yeah, but
And how we structure it within whatever year we decide to do it, and those types of things.
I can run any set of numbers you want.
Are you talking about like an incremental?
the XLS.
We want to know. Ken wants to know.
No, I was just curious, is it
What does that
2
give us from a
million, is it
capacity
10
standpoint?
million, is it 20 million? Yeah, exactly. Just kind of some rough idea.
Just wondering.
I can just.
What is it on top of your head?
you gotta run the numbers to do that. I mean, because the way you structured an outlying years
Uh-huh.
affects your current number, right?
And
So,
it depends on, you know, the useful life of the asset you're financing, how far you stretch it out.
Yeah.
The longer you stretch it
20
out, the
years.
lower the cost.
Exactly.
So I can run you some numbers.
Interesting. Okay,
and
thanks.
moving on to the next page, page 77, under page 172. These are our special revenue funds.
Hmm.
So we have projected next year 4 due to the new solid waste fee. So we'll go over the historic 3, which are state highway aid fund. These are your liquid fuels tax. So this is taxes that come back to you, to the municipality. That is flat for next year.
Yep. Probably
Sewage,
decreasing.
say again?
Probably decreasing in.
No, it's flat. Almost to within $1,000 flat.
No.
Yep. So sewage fund, this is 2 parts. This is your Alcosan fee, which is your sewage processing fee.
Mhm.
That is projected to increase 7% for the next 4 years. This is one of the years each year. Yep,
Pure
so
Alcosan.
pure Alcosan. We have not touched the municipal rate, which is $4.05 per 1,000 gallons, which goes into the maintenance and capital side of our sewer lines. Questions on that? Stormwater fund, this does reflect the increase of 12.5% for the first year of increasing the stormwater fee next year. So the total we're projecting is a little over 1.6 million. Typically, we were at 1.45 million. So it's about 180,000 per.
That's the only question I have is on not increasing our fee. These funds have worked pretty well for us,
Which
and
one?
we've done a lot of work on, yeah, so like we're in pretty good shape,
Yes.
better than most.
Yes, we're better, yes, better than most. And we've had some general fund that's had to pick up some of the icing spots, for instance.
Yes.
Yes.
Right, or a couple of years ago when we had the flooding.
Yes.
That's okay, we are able to do that.
Nothing
With
that puts
this-
us in any kind of jeopardy or busts our numbers that
No.
we've agreed on. right?
Nope, not at all. We've taken care of what we need to take care of in a responsible manner. Finally, it's the solid waste fund, which is due this year. This will need to be adjusted downward, so as discussed at last session, it is going to be $290, not $360, so there will be no surplus to fund balance, so that will be need to be adjusted in your final amendments, so. The fee, I do want to make sure that we discuss a little bit what that $290 entails. That $290 entails projected delinquency, because there will be delinquency, right? There will be people that won't pay, plus an administrative fee as well. So mailing out the bills, collecting the
That's
bills,
included.
that's included in that $290. Yes, okay, so that we make sure that 3 million plus bill that's coming in from Westmoreland Sanitary is paid from that fund. Okay. Next is the capital projects fund. We will discuss this further under capital improvements, but this gives you an idea of how things are funded, whether it be from the general fund, sewage fund, stormwater fund, or fund balance and grants from different funds. So the one I did want to point out to you, we'll be talking about for our future discussion, nothing to belabor today, is that 4th column, which is capital projects fund. These are projected grants and contributions we're expecting to receive.
Okay.
Right, so the Park View and Bower Hill and Washington Road CBD improvements are for grant dollars. And there is a small insurance piece to the Park View and Bower Hill, but those are grant proceeds from Green Light Go, I believe. Is that right? Is that the right?
Correct.
Yes, and then the tennis court reconstruction are proceeds, are contributions from Indoor Tennis Association. So, just wanted to make sure that's noted.
I don't see fire safety facility on here.
It's in the general fund. This is the capital project fund. Fire training
Yeah,
facilities in the
general.
general fund.
Just move to the general.
Not moved, it's, that's where it is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, that's what we're receiving.
It is.
We have $300 or 300,000, 200,000 in a grant, 100,000 committed from volunteer.
I always assumed it was there because we had to use that grant fairly quickly.
That's what I thought, yeah.
The
Not
grant,
necessarily, I could have placed the grant in the capital projects fund, moved all the money, but
Yeah.
it's just in the general fund.
Okay.
That's just where it's at.
deadline to use that grant is December of 2024
Oh,
Yeah.
for the, that's why we're gonna
Next
get that
year.
project.
Yeah,
We'll talk about that later.
Okay, finally is the parking fund. Which there's a couple items we need to discuss today. All good news. Is for revenue side, it's about $150,000 increase projected revenue. A couple items of note, is that meter collections we're projecting to increase next year now that we have full Washington Road. So now we have a full Washington Road. We've been waning on collections due to the fact
Right.
of never knew what was gonna be closed and those type of things. I will leave that alone. Next is a full year's worth of rent at a market condition rate per the agreement with East End. There will be, that will start to become full rate as opposed to the reduced rate they had for the first 2 years. In their
sure.
agreement.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what that increase in investment
Got
in rental is for.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're looking at that final column.
That's the outdoor area.
No, their actual
No,
rent
their
inside the
rent.
building.
Yeah, we
That's our
structured their,
Yeah, at least that's, yeah.
That's our.
So for their capital outfit, we reduced the market rate of rent in the first 2 years. So now it's the third year being, that's when it goes back, it starts to raise.
You're just having a brain fart here. I didn't know that.
Because it's in the north garage.
or the,
LaPont, that's the LaPompane and East End, right? So, and that's a taxable property
I was gonna say, yeah.
as well, so all those things that come into that side. No real changes in personnel services, nor were we recommending any next year. Contractual services, I did want to note, why it went up 100,000. This will be on your final budget amendments to be up, and we got final numbers after printing.
Sorry.
We're still on page 91.
Okay.
91, I'm sorry. I didn't announce that. I apologize.
Contractual services.
Yep, contractual services under professional services, the very first line,
Okay, got
it
it.
went up 100,000. That is for the South Garage feasibility study, okay?
Yep.
We've got subsequent numbers from the, after printing from Mr. McMeans to my left. And that needs to go to 125, so we'll be making an amendment.
Give or take.
Yeah, so we'll be making an amendment for you to see in the final budget. Recommendations for the parking fund is to increase 25,000 for that line.
We have money out of the parking fund.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's correct.
And just so the commission knows where that number came from, after we had the discussion session on the South Garage structural study, the
Right.
commission's direction was, we don't want to be caught flat-footed, we want to move forward this as soon as possible to have a study done to know what we need to do. So I reached out to actually one of our former planning board members, works for an architectural firm who is working on the garages on the north side right now. So I reached out to him and he came out and with some folks from his team and we talked through kind of what all we wanted to include with the RFP, a scope of services, and they gave me that estimated number of about 125. But I got that number after printing. But we'll see. I mean, we're still gonna have to RFP it, so you never know when an RFP goes out, what your
Right,
scope
come
of
back.
services is, what it comes back as, but
The prudent thing is to do right now, based on that estimate, is to increase that.
Yeah.
Two other line items to note overall within the parking function is under commodities and equipment. That is going up 24,000 plus.
Yeah.
That is for 2 pay stations that are reaching the end of their useful life in the Academy lot. So they're 7, 8 years old and beat up. So one of the things we will be changing the Academy lot is no longer accepting paper dollar bills. You've noticed that we've done that along Washington Road and they very, very expensive and a lot of downtime when you accept paper dollar bills. So we will be eliminating that in the Academy lot and any new stations we do get. The kiosk, coin
You can take coins.
and card, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So if someone has their Susan B. Anthony dollars, that's okay.
I don't know if it takes that.
There's no EV spots at the Academy lot, right?
No,
Right now, is there a plan to put any in?
no.
Why?
it was one of the sites we looked at for solar expansion potentially, and they looked at putting in the solar panel with a EV charging station. So it's on the list. We're working with Connect on a whole solar assessment. So it's on the list of things. we're working on.
Solar's
The
not
short
EV.
answer is it's super expensive.
To put an EV in?
Although I mean, all the infrastructure.
We don't need solar to put EV though. We put EV in Overlook.
Overlook was, we had the whole lot torn up.
Yes.
So we had an assessment from Duquesne Light. It would have to come from the sidewalk side of Academy. It does not come from the back side. You have the potential to do that, but it would eliminate some of the bull noses that are in the lot currently. And you'd have to rip up from that sidewalk underneath the berm to get to that point. So we discussed it. It would be expensive, and Duquesne Light was not in the, I will put it in. And, you know, it's gonna be on us to do that, and that's a big,
Construction.
it's a big number.
They
And a
want
big-
to take
yeah.
down trees instead.
Could you shoot electrical lines the same way that you could like shoot other things under without taking down things?
I think it's more the transformer and what, all the things you need to, because there's a lot of things that hook into there with Royers. Our lot, all the things that hook into that, it was not an easy uptake. They were not interested in the Academy lot.
There's a lot more money that's anticipated to start flowing for local government EV infrastructure.
So maybe
I
we
would
could just
sit on that until
Pick it up.
those monies start flowing.
Greg Wharton, who was hired last year, is focused on all of that, so. He's also sort of become our de facto grants coordinator, if you will. So that we have one person who's tracking all of these things.
Nice.
So needless to say, yeah, that's, but there will be 2 new stations be installed there next year. Finally is the depreciation line item, which is under other expenses. While that has increased, that's for prior projects, usually lags a year behind based on its useful life. There are 3 capital projects, which I want to draw your attention to on page 95 or budget binder, page 179. There are 3 capital projects slated for next year. One has been expressed to the commission about the North Garage top deck vestibule. Say that 10 times. Sorry. North Garage top deck vestibule, which is about really protecting the asset that is our elevator that we just put in. So the weather that gets into the chamber of the elevator can be protected by this vestibule. In addition to giving a space at the top deck when you're waiting for the elevator, you're not in the elements as well, but really to protect that asset, is that north garage top deck vestibule. So that's one, we talked about. Second is the next phase of one of our north garage elevators. So this is the modernization of another elevator car. This is the second of the 3. There are 3 elevator cars that we're responsible for at the north garage facility. So this is that project. And then finally is the south garage repairs. We had talked about, we budgeted for 300,000 worth of repairs. They're not known at this time. We need to evaluate, and we're going to give them not to exceed kind of, this is the repairs you need to do up to 300,000 based on the analysis that came from the south garage study.
Right.
From 2023.
1 year though of a multi-year project.
Yes, this is the first year, correct?
What's the total cost?
They had said 1.2 to 1.5 million over the next 5 years, and then it needs to have a full plan and be done in 5 years.
So why would we spend 1.5 million over the next 5 years? when we're gonna tear it down?
I think we should do that plan now.
Yeah, and that's the 100.
No, I mean, don't spend money
Why
on
would
it,
we
figure
spend-
out what we wanna do.
Right, 1.5
I
million.
don't wanna spend $1 on a facility, even if it means closing it down.
Well, commission already voted to say, let's spend the money to keep the thing going while we.
Yeah.
You know, that's, I mean, we've already voted on that. We've already.
How much do we allocate?
They always win every vote, but it just.
But also it does, what, 300 spots a day?
That study going.
For about 150.
Places with, but yeah, we already
That's a lot of
voted on
work.
that stuff.
Yeah, I use it too. I'm parked there right now.
Garage is gonna- dedicated useful life.
When did we guess? I'm missing.
Businesses.
Andrew, or Keith, give the exact.
He said we funded up 300,000 already.
No, we voted on the 100,000 for the study.
Yes,
I think
we
we
funded
also
the
had a
study.
meeting
Mhm.
where we committed to say we're gonna spend the money in the short term to keep the garage going. And as a discussion session, I've seen this movie before.
At the discussion session was put it in the budget, and that was what I took away
It
from
wasn't
it.
funded.
Yeah,
Okay, so
so
we said we could put in the budget, okay.
I'm with you,
Which was-
Craig. I don't wanna spend $1 on it without some more analysis and conversations. Just, I'm not, $1.5 million is a lot of money.
over 5 years, if we get it done faster, then it's maybe, 300,000 to 500,000 over the next 2 years. You already have a plan in place and ready to go.
We go.
Depends on how fast the
Right.
commission moves.
We
Right.
can't,
And wants to move.
we can't let this thing deteriorate.
Yes.
That's right,
It's gonna take time for us to make this transition,
right.
right? So we keep maintaining it.
This is
as
a
we-
big
as we make
decision.
this transition.
And it ought to be done, we need to make a good decision, it's a big decision. I think it'll take some time, and you don't want concrete falling down on people's cars, et cetera, come on.
And if 3 commissioners say we wanna spend 300,000, with all respect to the 2.
Sure.
Well, we're just saying in conversation, you said we funded it.
Well, but
Haven't
you
funded
can
it.
hear around
The
the.
contract will come before, the contract will come before you in 2024, provided funding within the budget, then the decision is at that point for Gateway and others and the consultants for the garage, this is what we think needs to be done right now.
Yeah.
And that's
Just
what
to
the
keep it
percent,
up.
that's,
It's safe.
keep it safe for that year, then evaluate next year, so
Right.
on and so forth, because winter's coming, as they
Mhm.
say, right?
That was the direction.
And a lot of things happen to that garage in the winter.
Oh, yeah, deteriorates.
This is just my opinion, we can continue this later, it's a lot of money for
Mhm.
whatever, 100 parking spots, a non-full garage that, you know, can park somewhere else.
150
Where?
usable spots.
How can you absorb hundred and fifty spots? You can't just absorb hundred and fifty spots.
other
Where are
garage
they gonna go?
Yeah, we
So-
have.
But the other-
Utilization.
That's the conversation. Full.
Pretty full.
I
It's almost full every day.
I think all we're saying is that's the
Garage.
conversation today.
It's always.
209,
It's a big decision.
266, something like that, I can get you that number.
South garage, yeah.
South garage is more, South garage
South garage
has more
has more.
spots than,
Yeah.
but it's
Oh, yeah.
only on average used half,
50%.
50% of the time.
But the
No,
north
that's-
garage, as I recall, is very well utilized.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
That's because it's mid.
Remember, as part of that same structural analysis that the commission received information on, the estimate was between 12 to 15 million to replace the structure as is. Now, we know that we're not going to do that. We're gonna look at other options and explore. This will be a very complex project.
That's right.
From a staging, even from a demo, but then from a staging laydown area. The question becomes, do we utilize part of the backlot that we have here? And
Right.
increase the parking
Temporarily,
capacity by going up from there that can be tied into whatever moves forward. So there's a lot of pieces to this, and
That's
to Commissioner Flynn's point, I think we were looking potentially not to spend the whole 1.5 million over 5 years, but to make investments to make sure that that structure remains safe for the usable life that we need it to have until we're able to make that.
I think
decision.
whatever we have to do, and I know we've got this plan out, but I think we need to accelerate that conversation as fast as we can, because it doesn't make sense to keep dumping money into a project that we know we're not gonna sustain, safety or not. I'm not saying we should make that building so that it's unsafe. But I think we need to accelerate that, especially because we know it's not going to be what it is today in 5 years.
Putting out
But
the
I think you
RFP
put that
next year.
$100,000 studies to exactly
Right.
get to that
Right,
goal
not
that you
next
described.
year.
You know, hopefully gives us an answer sooner, right? Let's not wait till year 5 if we don't have to.
No.
To your point, it's 298 spots at South Garage, it's 269 at the North Garage.
All right. All righty, Andrew, anything else
I just wanna
on?
say 5 minutes to spare, just saying.
Whoa, you get the award today.
Well, Commissioner, you have any other questions today? Yes, no, maybe?
Great report.
Okay.
Very well organized.
All right, great, thank you very much.